Okay. And Nancy just said she's joining, so I'm sure she'll be getting on any moment.
Okay, I just started YouTube
Okay.
and I'm going to let the residents in.
Hello, it's Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
Hello.
Hello.
You can hear me, Joe?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Joan, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I'm on a cell phone for the first time, which is why I'm asking.
Okay. Nancy, is it all right if I rename your square from iPhone to your name?
Sure. Thanks,
Okay.
Joan.
Okay.
You guys don't want to see me.
Okay, I have no one else to let in.
Is Mark on yet?
Yes, he is.
Oh, okay. Well, we can get started then, correct?
Yes, we can.
All right. I, Mary McVeigh, will call the July 21st, 2021 Franklin Township Board of Supervisors meeting to order at 7 p.m. Also in attendance via Zoom are Vice Chair Dave Gerstenhaber, Supervisors Morris, Auerbach, and Day. Also in attendance are Solicitor Mark Thompson, Township Manager Joe McVaugh, Assistant Township Manager Jeff Eastburn, and Secretary Mary Opermola. And there are how many members of the public present?
Let's see. God, Mike can't do math. 7.
And there are 7 members of the public present. All right, we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, if you can stand, do so. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
of the
States of
United States of
America
America and
and to the
to the
republic
republic
for
for
which it
which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
visible,
with
liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. The next part of our meeting is for public comment. Public comment is for anything relating to items on tonight's agenda. The last public comment is for items not on tonight's agenda. It's important to state your name clearly for the record so your comments can be reflected accurately. Please state whether you're a township resident or a township taxpayer. If you're using YouTube, you must type in your name and address before your comment will be recognized. If you do not identify yourself, your comments will not be reflected in the minutes. Is there any public comment? All right, if there's no public comment, John, can you take it from here?
Okay, approval of the minutes. I make a motion that the board approve version 1 of the Board of Supervisors meeting minutes held on June 16th, 2021.
I'll second that, John.
Seconded by Donna. Any discussion, upgrades, corrections, other issues related to the way the minutes are prepared? Hearing none, all opposed, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay?
Nay.
All right, the motion carries 3-2. with McVeigh and Morris, a nay vote.
Okay. All right,
Mary,
Donna.
you want me to go
It's
on?
yours, Donna. Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. So, I make a motion that the board approve the June 2021 Treasurers Report, which includes the following disbursements. The general fund with disbursements and transfers of $129,474.10. The Park and Recreation Fund with disbursements of $7,578.43. The Open Space Fund with disbursements of $6,098.75. The Capital Reserve Fund with disbursements of $9,179. The Emergency Services Fund with disbursements of $58,733.72. The Fire Hydrant Fund with disbursements of $580.80, leaving a balance in all funds totaling $1,594,254.81. Can I have a second for that?
I'll second that.
All right, thanks, Dave. Any discussion? I can just start us off. As folks know, I've been looking, my job is to look at the books and make sure that our accounts all align, so I can report back that I did do that this month, and everything is looking good. I had no questions at all for Joan. And I have a question, Joan, for you. Do we have any progress on the money to repair the bridge, the Hess Mill Bridge? I know there was I think it was approximately $4,000 to fix it. Has there been any progress on getting that money back?
No, I haven't heard anything with that. And maybe Mark might have some information on that as far as if there's any suit involved. Would you know, Mark?
Offhand, I don't have any information. We can try to certainly look into it, but it's probably early in the investigation, but to look for something like that. So, but I'll look into it, Joan, and let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Can I make one comment on the emergency funds? Donna, I saw you asked Joan for numbers from last year for Medic 94 and Fire Company, and they're different this year than last year. Joan, could you tell us, does that change based on how many calls they respond to? I don't know why the numbers are different year to year.
There is a formula that's used, Mary, and it's based on population and runs. And for the fire company, it's also based on the value of our real estate. So it does fluctuate some, and it also is impacted by the amount of money that they need, that the fire company or the Medic 94, the ambulance company needs.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Joan.
And Joan, I think you commented that if we looked at the numbers for Medic 94, in 2020 we paid about $30,000. In 2021 it's $21,840.
Yeah.
So there's a reduction in that, which is fantastic. And I think you said it was based on the use of a different formula that is actually more aligned with Franklin Township and more fairly presents our what our contribution to that fund. So I think it's actually this is important stuff. We have to pay this. We want to pay this. We're happy, and I know we have our representatives here with us today. I mean, this is important. We want to pay it. But it is nice to note that Medic 94, the cost actually went down a little bit. Any other comments? Okay, not hearing any. I'm going to take a vote. In favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any against, say nay. All right, the motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Donna, the only comment I give you on Medic 94, and Bob can comment on that later, is that the pandemic reduced the number of people that made calls. They just didn't want to go to hospital. So let him comment on it later.
Yeah, it's ironic, John, because you would think the opposite, right? People would be really sick and they'd have to go, but
Nobody wanted to go there and get COVID.
yeah, that's true. Strange times we live in.
Yeah.
All right, I'll hand it back to you, Mary.
You're up, Dave.
All
Thank you.
right. Thank you, everybody. So the zoning officer report. In the month of June 2021, 8 permits were issued, $9,150 in building fees, and $700 in miscellaneous fees were collected. 29 inspections were performed. There was 1 bamboo zoning issue completed and 2 high grass issue follow-up visits reported completed, and there is no motion required.
I would just like to make one short comment. For some reason, I never have to do all these numbers about the general fund and the zoning report, and I am very thankful. That's all I want to say.
That can be changed, Mary.
No. That's the advantage of being chair, Donna. Come on.
All right. Well, the PC did not hold a meeting in July.
Oh, wait, Nancy, before you start, I have a question for Joan. Regarding the bamboo, I saw that there was, work was to be completed. Do we know it was completed for the removal?
I do know that they've scheduled with a contractor, and it says it could be up to 10 weeks from mid-April. So we're not quite there yet, but our zoning officer is on vacation until next Thursday. So I will double check with him when he comes in again. But
Okay,
I know
good.
they have scheduled with somebody to do this work.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, well, the PC did not hold a meeting in July. Moving on, Chairman Paul Lagasse from the HARB, Historical Architectural Review Board, Historical Commission, will provide a summary of the Franklin Township Historical Commission and HARB July 6th, 2021 meeting. If you're here, Paul.
Thank you, Nancy. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, and I apologize for asking, but I'm on a cell phone and I cut myself off earlier. So we met on July 6th at the combined meeting, and the first primary topic of discussion was the Churchill African Cemetery. We are beginning our efforts to contact African American churches that may have links to the cemetery and hope to be working with them both in terms of sharing our compiled family information and ultimately cleaning up the cemetery. Secondly, and something that follows from the first, is that our research into the individuals buried in the cemetery, or at least believed to be buried there, has continued, and we are discussing ways to make that research generally available to the public once our work is completed. Then we discussed in broad terms the proposed Mason-Dixon Art Corner connectivity project. Given that this is a proposed project, we simply noted what it could involve and that it was something that did not exist until it had been agreed to. Finally, we had a certificate of appropriation application for 100 Walker Road, and that application is on the agenda later this evening, and so I will be available to discuss that at its time. That HARB members who attended the meeting voted to recommend that the supervisors approve the certificate of appropriateness. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Any further comments, anyone? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. And the Park Recreation and Open Space Board Chair Greg Sachs will provide a brief update of the pros meeting held on July 7th, 2021. It's all yours, Greg.
Hello.
Hello.
All right. So a few updates for you. Healing Gardens. So we attempted to schedule the prep work with the company Signature Landscape to get it going, and they let us know that their fees are going to be raised by roughly 30%. So at our last meeting, we kind of went over that, and we decided to kind of explore other avenues to get some of this prep work done. and we decided to reach out to the FSA. I met with Bob and Jeff as well at the gardens, and they're willing, and we are thankful for this, that they're willing to help us out as far as clearing and replacing some of the rotting boards that are there, doing some of the cleanup work, and just helping out, removing some of the shrubs, some of the, kind of the, I guess, not grunt work, but, prep work ahead of the actual planting. So we're hoping to get that handled this summer. That way we can shoot for a fall installation of the actual plants. So that's where we're at with the gardens. The memorial tree project, we've reached out to a few tree companies to see about getting the selection that we've kind of voted on of native trees for people to memorialize other people in Crossan Park. We've heard back from one of the companies. We're still waiting to hear back from two of the other companies that we've reached out to. Update on the tennis courts. They are going to be remained closed through the end of next week, and hopefully be completed and ready to go by the end of next week. The seal coating scheduled, weather permitting, for August 10th through the 11th. The temporary parking lot has been mapped out and marked out in the next door over in Franklin Preserve. So, as long as weather's good, we should get going on that one. And that's all I have as far as the updates at this time. Any questions?
Can I add one thing, Greg?
Sure.
The FSA will also be working on the basketball backstops. So they are going to try and get that completed, the backstops and the posts, before August 10th. So I'm awaiting a list for Lowe's, and I'll pick up the material and have that ready when they're ready.
Jeff,
Gotcha.
you mean they're going to paint them, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So that's all we had at this point.
Okay, any more comments for our wonderful pro committee?
This is Paul. I'd like to give an update on the Auburn Road property.
All right, thanks, Paul.
Joan asked me for an update last week, but I didn't have anything to give, but I've got one just Monday afternoon. They said just that things are moving in the right direction and that they're doing an environmental study now on the property. So it's good news so far. That's it.
Wonderful. All right. All right, no more comments, and let's move on to the comp plan. I'm not sure if it's Kathy going or
It's me.
Nan is going to give, it's you, Nan. Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to give an update on the June 22nd meeting, correct?
Kathy was delayed, so she
Okay.
asked me to sub. So we
Thanks,
had a
Nan.
meeting on Tuesday, June 22nd. We discussed green infrastructure. We have a meeting this Tuesday, July 27th, where we're going to discuss Campbellsville as a village. And we also, at the end of the meeting, are going to have a discussion of the level of detail that the task force would like in their trail map. That's at the end of the meeting. I'd like to mention that the public is always invited to our meetings, their Zoom meetings. We've completed 3 chapters, written chapters, and we have 2 more to go. So in August and September, we'll be working on infrastructure is one of them, and future land use is the second one. And then from there, the document goes back to Chester County and they write the whole document. We review it again, and then it starts to make its way towards you guys, the Board of Supervisors. Janine thinks that it will reach the board probably in February or March. So it goes from us to the PC to you. Oops, sorry. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. Anyone have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I have some comments related to the trails. Recently, I noticed the map of trails proposed by Chester County Planning Commission, which delineates trails on private property throughout Franklin Township. These proposed trails were developed without the property owner's knowledge or consent. Publishing this information on an official township document suggests that Franklin Township believes that public access could or should be possible. This compromises the security and privacy of private property. Major component of security is the unknown configuration and characteristic of private property, and it's really what you cannot see, cannot harm or disturb. So having a low profile and visibility is a fundamental tenet of security. Suggests that a potential path through private property will encourage some people to trespass for the purposes of curiosity, invites the public to potentially solicit owners for access. Additionally, the information could create an opportunity to harm the property owner or some other nefarious intent. The key components of property security are security, privacy, liability, and public knowledge of unauthorized access. As a rural community, Franklin Township is attractive to many because of the security and privacy offered by larger secluded land parcels. Suggesting that these parcels might be open to the public access fundamentally violates the security and privacy desired by many property owners. Allowing the public to access private land creates a liability for the property owner for injury, damages either actual or perceived by the public using the trail. This risk is unacceptable to most property owners. Publishing an unauthorized trail in a public official document will identify the presence of a trail that public could access either knowingly or with intent to harm the property owner. The most important opinion to consider here is the taxpaying owner of the private property parcels in question. The opinions of people developing the map and members of the Board and Franklin Township are a distant secondary consideration. So I'm proposing that no proposed trails on private property shall be published by the township without the specific written permission of the private property owner. Proposed plan needs to be altered to remove proposed trails on private property before any of the preliminary plans are revealed to the public in any form or any manner. On another note, some of the trails were proposed on major roadways in the township. As many people know, walking, cycling on rural roads is a high-risk activity considering the bad driving characteristics of local drivers. This could be dangerous activity in Franklin Township dangerous to promote, could create serious injury and provide liability to the township. Adding some validating data to this thought, a cyclist currently collided with an automobile on South Bank Road, resulting in a fatality of this cyclist. My comments.
Okay,
So,
I want
Sheila,
to make a comment.
Okay.
John, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. There have been no maps proposed by the comprehensive plan. Have they been working on things? Fine, but they have not come to the comprehensive plan committee. They absolutely have not come to the board. So I think you're putting the cart before the horse here. You're dealing with a problem that doesn't exist yet. Could it? I don't know. But John, I don't get where you're coming from, John.
All right, let me explain. I think it was July 14th. I was in the township office and noticed a large scale map laying on the table, which delineated a large number of trails throughout the township on private property. Joan and I reviewed that map that day. I didn't have a lot of time to look at it, so I came back the next day to look at it further. It was denied access to it.
But John, it's not real yet. It's just something somebody drew up, and the comprehensive plan has to say, do we want to include that map? Do we not want to include that map? It's not a real thing yet. Like, you got to wait till Tuesday till they have their meeting and they present the maps to the comprehensive plan, and then they discuss it, and eventually it will come to the board. What you looked at is it's not real yet. Put it that way. Did somebody draw that on paper? Yes, I agree they did, but it's not real
Mary,
yet.
that's too late. If we wait to the meeting on Tuesday, that meeting is a public meeting, as it should be,
Right.
and the map would be out to the public, as it should be, because it's a public meeting. So I think it's just important, and I think this is good feedback to Nan, that when the map is presented to the comprehensive plan, that, you know, either talk to the, if the trail goes through a private property, that owner should give their okay, and if they don't give their okay, then that there should not be a trail shown going through their private property.
Yeah, but we're jumping the gun, I think, Donna. Like, will that map going through private property happen? It probably will not. So we're discussing something and getting people upset about maybe something nobody even has to talk about.
Well,
Like, we got to wait and see. Like this,
It will
this map.
It will be displayed. It will be displayed at that Tuesday meeting. It will go public at the Tuesday meeting, because the Tuesday meeting is a public meeting.
I don't believe that map is going to appear at the Tuesday meeting, and I think we're worrying about something that it's not going to exist.
Well, here's
So,
the,
Nan, what are your plans? So, were your plans to show up a trail map that includes trails going through private property?
We wanted to review that. We have 4 maps. Okay. So one of them two of them actually do show some trails going through private property. But let me talk to you about this, is that the reason that we want to do that is it shows to the residents where the general direction of the trails want to go. Will there be a trail on that property? We don't ever know that, because 1, we can't put a trail on a property without the landowner's permission. And 2, if that property gets developed, we have the ability to talk to a developer about putting the trail through. So,
here's the
you
point.
know, but it's not, I mean, we're not adopting it. We're not adopting it. We're having a conversation. And please remember this, that we do represent the residents of Franklin Township, including the landowners, to have some discussions about trails. In our survey, the number 1 thing that people like about Franklin Township is open space, and they all talked about having a trail network. And so
I have
one more thing to say, and then you can talk. I'll mute. Okay. So, you know, having trails, when we did the trail 2005, we had Ray Ott came in and he did a feasibility study. He put all of the trails along busy roads, which is you can't do that. Unless PennDOT comes in and makes 896 wider. And Joan and I have had lots of conversations about that, about how it can't be done. But I'm going to say that you've got a choice. You either have to bring trails through property of willing landowners or along roads. And we need to have a discussion as a comp plan in public to get the wishes of the residents out there so we can have this discussion.
And all I'm saying is that if it goes, so there's a difference between a map and I've seen a couple maps at the township building that are general arrows, like it's like a very much like it points to the left or points to the right. It's not in a situation where you're actually bordering someone's property and it's very clear that this is the pathway through that person's property. I personally don't have a problem with the latter, where it's a general arrow being pointed and says we would like a trail to go in this corner, and we like a trail to go in that corner. But when you have a map that has the actual property boundaries drawn per parcel, and actually has a line going through a person's private property going right along their boundary, and it's very clear this is Mary McVeigh's property or Donna D's property, I do not believe you should do that, present that even in the public, because unless you have the private property owners okay. So if you have a more generalized trail that you want to set the tone, I think that's perfectly fine. But to actually show a map that has that, and I've seen that map, so I'm not making it up. So I've seen the map of the township where the parcels are all demarcated. You know whose parcel it is, you know who lives there, and you see a line being drawn in their backyard. That map should not be presented to the comp plan, because it becomes a public document. That's what unless you have the private property owner's permission. Go with the more generalized map.
Well, Donna, I would comment this. I think this is not a discussion for the Board of Supervisors at this point in time. This is still the comp plan, what they're going to talk about, what they might do, what they might not do. It is down the road when it comes to the Board of Supervisors. We're commenting on things like the bulldozers are heading out tomorrow.
Well,
No,
no,
you're missing the point, Mary.
there's
It's
2
not
points.
whether to build the trail, it's whether we're showing trails through someone's backyard. So as
We
a member.
aren't doing anything. It's the comp plan. It's not us. We're the Board of Supervisors.
No,
This is the
but
comp plan.
yeah, it's the point. I think the point is here, and I kind of understand. This document is probably not appropriate to be put into the comp plan, because the comp plan is supposed to be a guiding document, right? And when you do have this, while I think it's important to have a plan and a strategy, and this is why trails are very important to when you start thinking about trails, you want to have a strategy. But to Donna and John's point, there is something to be said about a homeowner's right to privacy, and to say, Dave Gerstenhaber has 2 acres and we're going to put a trail through his backyard. That all of a sudden puts me into a position where I might have to end up defending why I might not want to do that, right? So that's sort of where it comes down to, if you can have a plan in your head, or a plan that's not published. So when and if, say, a developer comes in, we have this in the back and say, okay, hey, when we negotiate with the developer's development rights, we can talk about the trail. My concern is, does it put homeowners kind of in an uncomfortable position? One, because you're talking about property that they own, and now this is getting dropped on them. I think there's some merit there to say, before we talk about this in a public meeting, we reach out to the homeowners that we're talking about and say, hey, your property came up on a trail map. Do you have any issue with us talking about this? Right. I think it's really presumptuous to do that without. I mean, we're a pretty small township, and there's not that many houses impacted. I don't think it's too much of an ask to reach out to these residents and say, hey, by the way, your property is going to be discussed at the public meeting.
Dave, but at what public meeting? I don't think the public meeting.
The comp plan meeting.
Exactly. Why are we talking about it at the Board of Supervisors?
Because no one's reached out to those residents to come to this meeting.
And they may not have to. When they
Okay.
go to the comp plan meeting, it may change.
Can I just say something? Let me say something so you can move on with your meeting.
Thank you.
Comment, but have it at the end.
I want you to take this, put it on a thumb drive, this conversation, and we're going to play it at the comp plan meeting. All right.
Okay.
Before any maps are shown. Okay.
All right, here's the point. And
I mean, that's the point.
John, you've already made your point. Let's move on.
I'm sorry, I'm not finished yet. First off,
You're
Dave,
never finished.
thank you for your comments. I appreciate it. I think you fundamentally understand the issue. The reason I came out now is it looked to me like this may be presented in public. And the fact that once you delineate the trail on somebody's property, that fundamentally compromises their security. So that's why I'm bringing it out now, because this meeting's coming up on Tuesday. So I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that that's the issue. And I can tell you that I spoke to 35 property owners in my area. Not one of them wants to see their property delineated on a trail. Now, I did have a meeting with Kathy Going a few days ago, and she agreed with me and said that as far as the comp plan would go, they would have a background of the township that did not show parcel boundaries, and then they have some transparent overlay that would show where the trails may go. I don't have any problem with that. When you put a line on the map and it shows the property and parcel boundaries, that's when I have an issue, and that's when most landowners have an issue.
Well, that hasn't happened, John. So I think we're discussing something that hasn't happened, and I think we should allow Kathy and the comp plan to handle this, and they will have discussions. And yeah, I don't know why we're involved in this. I really think we should let it lay, let the comp plan have their meeting on Tuesday. If we have an issue with whatever they talk about, decide, okay, then. But now we're talking about something that has not happened. So I think we need to move on to the road.
You're missing.
Let's move on.
I think we need to move on. We'll talk about
John,
this.
you've made your point.
I'm sorry.
Let's move on.
We get what you're saying, John, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah,
and it may never happen. So
This is what I'm going to
battle
do.
you don't have to fight yet.
This is what I'm going to do. John, be quiet for 1 second. You're going to like it. So what I'm going to do is, Joan, it is your responsibility to give this part of the meeting and present it to the comp plan at the beginning before anybody talks about any maps or sees any maps.
Mhm.
And then the comp plan can decide what they want to do.
Mhm.
Because you guys, John, and everybody, all the supervisors, please remember the flow of information for the comp plan comes from the residents and goes to the Board of Supervisors last. And now we're having a situation where the Board of Supervisors is telling the comp plan what to do.
Yeah.
So I would rather they see this conversation, including what I'm saying now. It's played back to them at the meeting. And then after that's over, then the comp plan can discuss what they want to do. With no public showing of the map, the comp plan people won't even see the map. We'll discuss what we want to do.
100% agree, Nan.
Is that fair?
We'll wait on the comp plan.
That's the fairest
Yeah.
I can do.
I agree. I think that's entirely appropriate, Nan.
Okay, all right, move on.
All right, let's move on. John, you're up next on first item of business, please.
Let me get my agenda here. Motion sheet, excuse me. Ron Ragan will provide a brief update on the road program and no motion is required. So Ron, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
There's not a lot with the work. Hopefully, and I apologized for the lateness of the document, but hopefully you got what I'm suggesting that we use as sort of a tracking or a status, kind of an update task by task where we are. But as of tonight, we've started pipe work on Hess Mill and we have completed the pipe French drains on Church Hill and Hilltop. And we're in the process of trying to redesign something on Mackey Court because other than that, everything is yet to be started. So we'll have more to report as we move along, and I can do one of these weekly supervisors if you want, so that you have your finger on the pulse of what's happening with these projects. So you just kind of tell me what you want in terms of how frequently you would like some.
Well, Ron, I think it's appropriate to do it once a month for sure, or if something,
Yeah.
If you need some guidance, then come through the township manager. The only question I got is I didn't get out there this week related to the pipe work we did on Hess Mill Road. We weren't sure where that pipe was. Was it under the road or in the bank?
I stopped today and checked on them and they had just gotten past Duckowitz's driveway. So I really didn't get to a point yet where they were digging it out in the morning. Were they finding curved pipe or were they finding straight sections of pipe to go around that bend in the road? So I will stop back out tomorrow and see how far they got up the hill and what kind.
I was just curious.
It was in very bad condition that was there. What they're digging up was in very poor condition.
Yeah, the ends of it look really bad.
And Ron, I would appreciate a once a month update. And if anything comes up between the monthly board meetings, contact Joan and Joan can contact all of us. I think that's, everybody agree if that's.
It would be very easy just to add some more columns in here if you wanted to have some.
Do your thing, Ron.
I could use this as a way of reporting that by just sticking in another date and say, as of this date, this happened.
Yeah, and I think that's great. And that'll keep us
Perfect.
all up to date. Anything comes up, contact Joan and Joan will email all of us. So, but otherwise we'll wait for the monthly update.
All right, sounds good. I just wanted to make, you didn't
Yeah,
have to wait and rely on me to come to a meeting and tell you what was going to happen. I was hoping we could feed you
Thanks.
something a little more frequently than that. So that's good.
thank you, Ron. It's really appreciated, really is. All right, any more comment on any questions for Ron? Comment? If not, Donna, you're up next.
Mary, I'm going to I'm entertaining 5 grandchildren here tonight, so.
Oh, God bless you.
She's gonna,
Oh my, I've been to that movie.
good night, everybody. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you.
All right, Mary, I'll take it from here.
Thank you.
The Westboro Fire Company, President Neil Vaughn will provide an update. Neil?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to, first introduce myself. I was newly elected as the president of the fire company starting this year. So obviously with COVID, we haven't been out to all the municipalities as we would like. So we're just now, now that things are calming down, we're just getting out to say hello and just say, obviously we're still here and we made it through the pandemic like everybody else. So just real quick about myself, like I said, I was just elected as president this year. I have 26 years in emergency services. I'm a former fire chief with Malvern, former president of the Chester County Fire Chiefs Association. So I think I missed a meeting and then was elected president for this year.
That'll teach you.
I know. So like I said, obviously, we did make it through COVID, numbers, kind of that was alluded to, we're all over the place at the very onset. We were very slow, with everybody home, not a lot of people wanting to go to the hospital, being transported. So there wasn't a lot of ambulance incidents, not a lot of fire incidents. Then obviously, we got the uptick back to where we are with our steady volume. Real quick, we are at 290 fire incidents for the year so far, and we're at 1,400 EMS incidents for the year, 19 fire incidents in Franklin, and 108 EMS incidents in Franklin thus far. Couple things that we're working on. We're working on our annual budget. Obviously, we're hoping to have that done by mid-August, and we will be scheduling our annual review with all the municipalities. So we'll be reaching out here shortly to schedule that. We have a new engine that was on order like everything else. It was delayed due to COVID. It is now back on the assembly line. So we're anticipating that should be done hopefully by the end of the year. We have a new ambulance on order as well. That should hopefully, again, timeline be at the end of the year as well. So really, I just wanted to say hello, introduce myself. As we're getting out, we do have, hopefully I could do this somewhat well, but we have a picture of our fleet of apparatus that we're presenting to all of our municipalities. So I will drop this off
nice
when time permits, and I'll work that out with Joan. So it's just a little thank you of support. As always, from the fire company to Franklin Township. And I think really in the end, we understand with the American Rescue Plan funding, we know that the guidance isn't going to be available until August, or I'm hearing even September. But if there's certainly anything that we can work on, we're certainly here, to try to partner with the township. Other than that, if there's any questions, I can certainly entertain them. Or I would like to say a quick hello to Mark Thompson as well.
Okay.
I worked with many municipalities and
nice. Neil, I have
Good
a
to see you,
question
Mark.
for you.
Sure.
First of all, we truly appreciate all that you do for our township. You're just amazing people. But I was wondering, are you able to partake in any of this American Rescue money? I mean, does any come directly to you, or would it have to come through the townships to get money?
It would have to come through what we're seeing is it would have to come through the township. We didn't get a allotment. We were able to do some of the payroll protection and some of the other little funding opportunities, but through the American Rescue Plan, it has to come from obviously DCD to the township to the entity that you would like to donate to.
Okay.
But
well,
we certainly. Yeah, and we certainly understand, like I said, we know the guidance isn't out there. So I think everybody's kind of waiting to see what's that going to look like on the back end.
Sure.
is it just a lump sum donation, or do we have to, give you some sort of documentation? So, we're waiting patiently like you are as well. So,
Right. Okay. Well, thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else have questions, comments?
I just got a comment, just acknowledging the professionalism of the West Grove Fire Company and what they've done over the years that I've been associated with them. I think you go back about 6 or 7 years, we work with West Grove Fire Company on a funding plan for EMS service. It was myself and a number of supervisors from surrounding townships. And as a result of that, West Grove also realized that they needed a really auditable budget and better financial organization. And they have done a first-class job of organizing themselves along those lines. They went out and got a professional firm to make an assessment of their equipment, their capital equipment, and develop a capital replacement plan based on that recommendation. So they're a first-class organization from the way they're organized, their training, the personnel, and of course, most importantly, the service they provide to the community. So that's really what I'd like to say tonight.
And we
Okay,
certainly
Neil.
appreciate that.
Neil, you know who you go to when you need a donation.
Absolutely. And we appreciate everybody's donation.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
and we appreciate you. All right. If there's no more comments, Donna, can you pick it back up?
Sure, Mary.
Thank you.
So now I'd like to introduce Chief Executive Officer Bob Hotchkiss, and he'll provide a 2020 annual report for Medic 94.
Hey, everybody,
Bob?
hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Hey, good evening, and thanks for the invite. Look forward to seeing everybody in person real soon. First and foremost, thank Franklin Township for their ongoing support financially and otherwise of the services we're providing to the community. Just like West Grove, we've had a challenging year. It's been a lot of interesting things. I think the key words are everybody's talking about pivoting and flexing and all the new catchwords as a result of COVID, but we did all of that. Our paramedics performed fantastic through this really challenging period. We got through it. We got through it healthy. We got through it safe. And hopefully we're at the end of it. But it was a challenging year. As President Vaughn said, the call volumes was a little off there. People were afraid to go to the hospital there. So we had that challenge that our call volume dropped, which is a revenue stream for us. But some of the things that occurred last year, despite COVID, this past or 2 months ago, we got our report from our cardiac arrest data from the federal study that we participate in, that all of Chester County, most of the Commonwealth, and a lot of the national organizations participate in, called the CARES data, and it looks like cardiac arrest resuscitation data. And through the COVID of 2020, our paramedics and our partner West Grove Fire Company, Avondale, and Oxford, our cardiac arrest resuscitation rate was twice the national average and twice the average in the Commonwealth. So we're committed to that clinical excellence, and we don't do that. We're not able to have those resuscitation rates without a really good 911 system, which we have participation from the public with early CPR and our partner organizations with West Grove, Oxford, and Avondale. It makes a huge difference. So we're really proud of that clinical excellence we continue to provide here, especially during the pandemic. Some things that are going on. I know everybody usually asks me about what's going on with the hospital, and I always my standard line is the hospital needs to speak for themselves. Just like the community, we are anxious to find out what's going to go on with that. They are partners, even though we're not part of the hospital structure. They are partners in healthcare with us, and their success and their remaining in the community and doing well is important to us. I know we've talked to my partner, EMS leaders in the other organizations, and what we're seeing is a shift away from patients coming here because of the uncertainty. And what does that mean? That means that, for example, if I did a call right now in Franklin Township and the patient says, I want to go to Jennersville Hospital, that's about a 45-minute call start to finish. A lot more patients are saying, I want to go to Chester County Hospital, I want to go to Lexington General Hospital, I want to go to Christiana Hospital. That takes that 45-minute call and makes it an hour and a half and 2-hour call. So that takes resources out of the area. We are committed to taking patients to their hospital of choice, and we're also committed to taking patients to the hospital that can manage their care. We focus on one-stop shopping, making sure our paramedics are clinically have that clinical excellence for those real sick patients, because tertiary care hospitals like Christiana and Chester County Hospital provide services for trauma and other types of heart attacks that Jennersville can't provide. So while we take about half of our patients to Jennersville Hospital, our sickest patients we're usually taken to Chester County Hospital and Christiana Hospital. So that's something that's something we're very focused on. I believe I sent out, Joan, did you get my request for next year's budget? I believe I sent it out here about a week ago.
Yes, and the board has it.
I got the data in early, and I think as John mentioned, we went, and John was a big part of this, along with some other municipalities, of taking what we call the West Grove formula, which is a third population, a third millage, and a third of call volume, and then coming up with a number of funding we need, and then averaging that and spreading that out and coming up with an average, and that's what our municipal request was based on. And as John mentioned, we were up around $30,000 before we changed the formula. And then last year, I think you were at 21 and change. I think it was 21,840. And this year for 2022, we're asking for 24,360. We are not asking, the bottom line number we're asking for did not change. It's still the $420,000. We made a decision not to ask for more funding for next year. But what happened is, because of call volume changes in the percentages, your percentage of call volume went up. So that's what changed your data, changed the request this year for funding. So we're just kind of, I think I sent them out about 2 weeks ago, and we've talked to a couple of municipalities, and I think generally everybody is pretty happy with the new formula. And I know next year we'll hopefully have the census data from 2020. So I expect some changes next year. I don't know whether your census will go up and down, but we're using 2018 census data right now, and the 2020 won't be published, I guess, till the fall. So that might change things a little bit next year. The biggest thing we got going on right now that is real important to us is our capital campaign. Our cardiac monitors that we've had for about 15 years, they're the piece of technology that we use on every single patient. Every time we go to a patient, we have the cardiac monitor. And our current ones are 15 years old. They're starting not to meet regulatory requirements. They're not able to be serviced like they used to. And we have made a commitment last year to start a capital campaign to raise money to replace 4 of them. We formally kicked it off in May. And to date, we've received out of the $180,000 cost of these new devices, we have received about $60,000 towards the devices. The technology is amazing. I know if I talk to people about that Verizon commercial where they show the paramedics in the helicopter talking via video to the hospital, and the technology that we're getting will replace our existing technology, but will also bring us into the telemedicine days. And so it will allow us to allow receiving hospitals to look at the data that what our paramedics are looking at via the cloud live, via the mobile data terminals that we have in our vehicles. So it goes up on a secure link to the cloud. The hospital dials in, they can see what our paramedics can see. It also has video and camera, has a camera and video. So some of those patients are more complex. A picture's worth 1,000 words, a video's worth 1,000,000. We're able to, on some of these patients, being able to send video and pictures and the actual live telemetry, what's going on with the patient. We're fortunate enough with the money we received so far, we've been able to purchase one of the devices, and we're putting it into service, and the technology is amazing. Not only is it amazing technology, but due to all the advancements over the last decade, it's about half the weight of what we carried before. So that our paramedics are very happy about that. It does more and it weighs less. So we're very anxious to we're continuing to work with community, try to raise that money. I know some townships, as President Vaughn had mentioned, had talked about the rescue plan, and maybe there was discussion of maybe some of that funding, once some clarification was established here, maybe putting some funding towards that capital campaign. But we're engaged locally and at the federal level for some other grants to try to raise money for this campaign. This is a desperate need for us to get this equipment replaced over the next probably 6 to 8 months. So we're very working real hard to get that done. I don't know if you have any other questions. I mean, that kind of concludes my kind of briefing. It's good to talk to everybody again. Look forward to doing it in person. Does anybody have any questions about us or any of our services or fundraising or municipal funding?
Bob, I'd like to just acknowledge a few things that we have a lot of residents on here might not fully understand your service. The service provided by Medic 94 is an extraordinary service. It's levels above your typical paramedic that comes from West Grove or Avondale. The paramedics that come out of Medic 94 are trained to treat patients on the spot with effective drugs that they don't have to wait till they get to the hospital to get these drugs. They're life-saving drugs that could probably make the difference between a person surviving or not, or how much damage they eventually get. So it's a very high level of care. It requires a great deal of training. And I think the other thing that you might want to mention, Bob, is how long your employees have been with you, because you've got long-term employees, and that really provides a consistency of this service, which is really above and beyond anything we would expect here. So,
yeah, thank you, John. I mean, I always emphasize we're not able to do this without partnerships of West Grove, Oxford, and Avondale. Our organization was founded almost 40 years ago based on that, because there were no paramedics down here, and the 3 fire companies, ambulances, and the hospital at that time, since dropped out, said we need the paramedics and we need to come up with a regional system. And all the clinical excellence that goes on, it's a team. And sometimes we're there first, and sometimes West Grove's there first. And the sickest of the sickest patients, it doesn't happen unless the team gets together. And it's a really valuable team. You know, our organization, our transparency, our accountability, and our community involvement is something that the rest of the Commonwealth looks at. I've traveled all across the Commonwealth to talk about how we work with our municipalities. You know, our clinical excellence has been recognized at the state level and the county level. And, you know, again, we're really proud of the partnerships with the basic life support, and it all makes it a healthcare team for the community. And as John said, we have long-term employees. One of our employees has been here since day one. And next week, I'll be here 30 years. So we have a lot of employees that hang around for a long time. And that's because we take care of our employees. They're our most valuable piece of equipment. And we invest in our employees. We want to keep them around. We give them good equipment, safe equipment. We challenge them. It's a challenge environment out there for patient care where we're going to have a longer transport time for our sickest patients. So we try to support our paramedics that way. You know, we're seeing a little bit of a youth movement. We are seeing some younger paramedics as paramedics are starting to retire and things like that. So we're seeing a little bit of a youth movement, but our turnover is very small here. People like working in this community, like working with the partnerships with the fire companies, and we're really proud of the services we provide in the community.
Well, Bob, I appreciate that. The only other comment I'd like to make is about the funding formula, which is something we developed with West Grove maybe 5-6 years ago. And it was primarily related to EMS service from the fire companies and also Medic 94, in that there was a fixed cost that all the townships were incurring, and there was no adjustment for call volume. And some townships have a very high call volume. In fact, one of the townships, I think, used about 50% of West Grove's service at that point, and we're all getting charged the same amount. So We came up with a formula that used three components. One was the assessed value of the property, and the second was the population, which provides an indication of demand. Both of those are fixed costs. You have to have some fixed cost money coming in to keep the doors open. But then the third element was the call volume. So that provided townships like Franklin and London Britain, who have a low call volume, to benefit from that. And then some of the townships that use more of it paid a more appropriate price. So that was implemented in West Grove about 5 years ago, and Bobby picked it up in the last few years. So both West Grove and Medic 94 on that formula. It's about as fair as you can make it. I don't think anybody's complaining about it once we got it in.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and Franklin Township's been funding us, even, I think, before we even had a formula. So, you know, I thank you for that. But again, that, as John said, that formula, we brought all the townships together to work on that. And that was something that was really much, I mean, we come up with a number of what we need, and the municipalities from the 17 municipalities we serve all got together to come up with the formula. And the West Grove formula was one that's been out there 5 or 6 years and was really popular with your municipality and some other ones. So it was something that was easy to adopt, and there was familiarity with it with a lot of the townships we serve.
Well, the challenge really was that with West Grove, we only had to get 7 townships to agree to it. But when you picked it up, you had like 17 townships, and that was a much harder group to get to agree to a single formula. So certainly you're a big part of that success, along with the other townships. So thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, well,
Any
thank you.
questions or comments? If not, Dave, you're up next.
Okay, Mason-Dixon Arch Corner proposal. Sheila Fleming will provide a summary of the Mason-Dixon Arch Corner Heritage Interpretation Connectivity Plan. There is no current motion required.
All right, thank you for that introduction, and good evening, everyone. My name is Sheila Fleming. I'm here representing the Brandywine Conservancy, and I'm here also with Jim Martin, who's here representing London Britain Township. And we're standing on the beautiful front porch of the Franklin Township building. Because we got it wrong. So but we're grateful for technology, and so we're happy to join you this evening. So I'm hoping that you all have received the executive summary for the Mason-Dixon proposal for the Heritage Interpretation Study. Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. So what we'll do is Jim's going to give a brief, little bit of a brief background on the project, and then I'll take over to talk about a few of the more technical aspects. So I'll pass it over to Jim.
And I'm one of your neighbors. I live on Gypsy Hill Road, except I happen to be in London Britain Township. I'm also involved in the White Clay Creek. I'm with the Friends group down there, and you're just beginning to get exposed to DCNR through the Strawbridge property. What we found is to deal with, let me say, DCNR, which ultimately controls quite a bit of our township, and I think a fair amount of your township. It's better to do it in mass, and that's why we're here today talking about this, the master plan, I guess, connectivity plan. And what we see happening is DCNR has made it pretty clear to the Friends group that they're not interested in the adjacent trails. They want to come up with a trail plan in Harrisburg and then let us know what it's going to be. We don't think that's right. What we want to do is get the townships together in the county and come up with a connectivity plan for the all 4 townships: New Garden, London Britain, Franklin, and Elk Township. We've already met with New Garden on Monday, and they're very interested, as is London Britain, which is why we're here tonight. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.
Thanks, Jim. So when Jim got me involved in the project, I realized that he basically prepared this executive summary. So he's very knowledgeable about the geography of the area and the natural resources, the historic resources. And I'm coming into this a little bit on the news side. So you all know a lot more about your municipality and the surrounding municipalities than I do. But what I did gather is that this is an incredibly unique area that has, you know, a lot of protected lands, important agriculture, incredible historic resources and assets. And what you have in common with London Britain, New Garden, Franklin, and Elk Townships, who would be the 4 municipalities, is the Mason-Dixon line. And so what this study would be is a multi-municipal approach to planning a cohesive manner to tell the story of the Mason-Dixon line. And each one of the 4 municipalities has its own story to tell as well. And so the study is really to look at the 4 municipalities together as a whole, and to come up with a plan as to how can we tell a cohesive story of the history of the places and the people and the open space and the agriculture. And what this is intended to do is to have sort of a better economy where 4 municipalities are coordinating together towards a common goal. And it's also intended to potentially introduce some agritourism to the area that might be of economic benefit to each of the municipalities. So in terms of timing now, the project our proposal is to the Vision Partnership Program, which is due in August or September, late summer, fall. The project itself wouldn't kick off until early 2022, so it might correlate nicely with your progress on your comprehensive plan update with the county, where this plan could actually be used to implement recommendations in your brand new comprehensive plan. So I think the timing could be very nice there. We're thinking it would be completed in 18 months. So it would kick off in early 22 and wrap up by the end of 2023. The current thought is that it would probably be a $65,000 project. $45,000 would be, if it's awarded by the Vision Partnership Program through Chester County, and $20,000 then would come from the municipal partners, meaning $5,000 from each of the 4 municipalities. So I know that's a tall order, and that's certainly negotiable. We could take the price of the project down, but we would also have to reduce the scope of work somewhat. So that's you're the second pitch that we've done together. The first pitch was on Monday to New Garden Township. So I think you probably have some questions for us, and we'd be happy to answer them.
I would throw in there that I'm also chair of the Historic Commission, and Paul Lagasse attends our meeting, and he's been very instrumental in putting this together, because we want to protect the historical properties. And one of them is Lund's Tavern, which I think you're aware of on 896. And we may have a buyer for it that wants to keep it as it is.
So I do have a question, and I did read the executive summary, but I can't tell you I digested all of it. So if you could just briefly tell me, what's the deliverable? I understand this is about history, it's about, using the lands that we have, and I guess telling the story, but what actually will be delivered after the 18 months to complete the project? Will it be a booklet? Will it be I don't know. I'm not quite clear what's the deliverable. Could you just explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so sorry, I wasn't real clear. The deliverable will be a written report with maps. And there will also be recommendations and phased recommendations, so short, medium, and long term, to realize the goals of the plan. The plan would include a study committee with representatives from each municipality. There would be several public meetings to secure a lot of public feedback and comments on drafts and working products. But at the end, it would be a written report with maps. And the idea is that the report and maps would identify specific heritage sites and interpretive sites. And it would also tell us what part of the story of the Mason-Dixon line or your unique circumstances in your municipality that should be told at each one of those heritage sites or interpretive sites. And so it would be, the maps would show where, there would be a narrative that described what stories should be told and how. We will have a design consultant who will give us examples of what that interpretation method might look like whether it's a kiosk or signage or displays of different types and sizes. And we would also provide cost estimates of what some of these facilities or new features might cost, so that this document could be used to go to apply for grant funding to actually implement those projects. So the document would give you enough detailed information to take those recommendations to the next step and apply for funding.
All right, thank you. That helps.
Let me jump in on that too. Obviously, we all have a common interest in Fair Hill, and let me say horse activities or equestrian activities. I took a tour with DCNR, which is the park people in Harrisburg, on last November of the Strawbridge property. And one of the first points that they were asking was, we'll have to put up a barrier or a fence between us and Fair Hill, because we're not sure we want these horses up here on this side. We're slowly wearing them down on that thought process, but it's a challenge. And what we want to do is make sure the trails that we collectively come up with connect up with the Fair Hill trails. And the same thing with the preserve, the White Clay Creek Preserve and the Delaware portion of the White Clay Creek.
So now I'm a little confused now. Where did the trails come in at? Because you talked about it was a report with maps. The maps would tell you where these, I guess, like various historical sites are. So you're trying to connect the historical sites through a trail? Is that also what's going on?
Yeah, so part of the study will be to look at where those interpretive sites should be, and also conceptually, not site specific or parcel specific, but conceptually where linkages should be pursued to connect those facilities. It would not be a detailed map.
But let me see if I can answer your question. The trails, what we would do in the connectivity plan is identify the total area, including Strawbridge and White Clay, into a cohesive trail network. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Well, it sounds like the goal is to try to connect these historical sites up, right? That's the goal, right? We want to tell a story about the history of our area. We have various sites that you can point to, there's a marker or something about that site that's specific that you want to point out, and now you want to try to connect them with a trail. I think that's what I'm hearing.
And it would be a little bit further than that. You have I think it's the Peacedale Park or Conservancy, whatever it is, and connect the trail is there to connect it to the Strawbridge property. But it's not on the state park system maps.
So this is going to give us the blueprint for building this connected system between these 4 townships, the existing open space trail project we already have, and provide some historical context / signage as people progress through this connected trail system. Is that another way of saying this?
That's a much better way of saying it, actually.
Okay. So
I must be tired.
That's okay. So at the end of the day, this is going to be an informative document, as well as meaning, we as the board say we've got this historic cemetery, for example, that we're cleaning up. This would provide us some verbiage to put on a plaque about the historical significance of this location, and it would also provide the blueprint to connect that to the trail system throughout these other municipalities. Is that the idea?
Yes, and we're all aware of Senator Andy Dinniman, who's now retired, and he's playing a key role in this because of his vision for the largest open space in the Mid-Atlantic region, which would be the 3 parks.
Perfect. Okay.
And the adjoining property, you're talking about over 13,000 acres.
The other more practical question too is you talked about there's going to be a cost involved. Did we have you talked to New Garden already?
Yes.
You spoke with their board? Did they vote in the affirmative that they would participate in this?
They did a straw vote because we don't have a final package to propose yet, and they are 100% for it.
Okay.
And London Britain is, we present to them on Monday, but I've already talked or explained it all to 2 of the 3 supervisors, and they're 100% behind it.
Okay. So, and I guess the other thing as we think about this is, when you think about the positioning of Franklin Township, for better or worse, we're kind of the connective tissue between all of these townships, right? We're kind of in the middle of these other 3 townships.
Right.
Right. Okay.
And you'd be happy to know that Elk Township much prefers your area than the Oxford area. They'd rather associate with you guys rather than Oxford area.
Okay.
I couldn't understand. I was trying to get them on board with London Britain. But
Oxford's a lovely place. Okay. So, all right. So I get it. I understand it. I understand our piece and how it works and what the outcome is. So.
And each board of supervisors plays a role throughout this whole thing.
Right. I guess that's the other question is as we go through, the cost, if we all vote in the affirmative or do a straw poll, the cost doesn't hit until 2022. Right.
That's correct.
Because, right. It's not going to be on this year's budget. Okay.
Yeah. And just so this shouldn't come, I don't want to hit you with this last minute, but we've done a similar plan in another part of Chester County called the Brandywine Battlefield Heritage Interpretation Plan. And that planning effort was led by Birmingham Township. Now, Birmingham Township did not have the resources to fund the entire study up front, as many municipalities wouldn't. And the way that the Vision Partnership Programs grant is they're reimbursable grants. So the municipalities have to pay for the plan up front, and then they're reimbursed by the county. So Birmingham Township wasn't able to take on that burden of cost. So each of the partners were asked to pay a floater up front for the project that was at the beginning of the project, that was refunded at the end of the project once the county reimbursed Birmingham Township for the plan. So we are thinking, and again, this is all very preliminary and it's a moving target, but we're currently thinking each municipality would contribute a float of $16,000 in early 2022. And then that would be $11,000 would be refunded at the end of 2023, which would result in your net contribution of the $5,000. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's just a bit, I mean, for me, to get my head around 5,000, I could get my head around 5,000. Now I have to get my head around 16,000. I know we'll come back, but we have to outlay 16,000. So I think it's, thank you for being upfront with that, but it's just something else to think about.
So the float would be for municipalities who wouldn't participate in this?
No,
it's only for participating municipalities. So the float would go to London Britton Township so that they can pay the consultants to do the project.
So let me just be clear. So you're saying that if we agree to participate, we would have to provide $16K at the beginning of 2022,
yes,
knowing that over a period of time, once it's over, we would get the $11,000 back, but we'd have to put that money up front.
Correct. Now that's how it worked with Birmingham Township, and all this is open for negotiation. So I'm just throwing that out there as a possible scenario, and that just seemed, to be the model that was used in Birmingham Township. But that's certainly open for discussion as you all decide whether or not you'd like to participate.
The reason for the rush, by the way, is this opportunity comes up twice a year. This one, we have to have it in by the end of August. The next time frame is March of next year.
Okay.
So really all we're looking for this evening is an indication of your level of interest in participating. And then, once we, understand whether you may be interested, then we can certainly keep you posted on how the other municipalities respond and send you any draft materials of the proposals and more detailed scope of work as we move forward.
So I think the important thing here, because I don't think there is no motion here. This is simply an acknowledgement that we are interested in participating in this process, and we will have an opportunity to revisit this once we get further along and understand the total costs, and we can then further decide, okay, this is not going to be for us, or this will be for us. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. In this, keep in mind, at the county level, the total money set aside is $50,000, up to $50,000. No township will end up paying any more than $5,000. So it's a 70-30 split between the county and the township.
Okay.
But with the money up front, so that's the town. They don't give you they don't give you the money until it's over. So that's the thing we have to think about.
Yes.
I have to think about. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we want to have an opinion from each person, but especially with the thought of agritourism, I think it's a terrific idea, and I'd be very supportive.
Okay. So I think we do have to take some sort of straw poll or something. Is that what we're going to do?
That sounds good, Dave.
Okay. So this is not a motion. We'll just say all in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. So all opposed or all in favor of supporting moving or showing our interest in this Mason-Dixon Heritage Project, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
I need more definition to go on with this thing. I don't think there's enough definition here to make a commitment yet.
Yeah, and I'm in the same place. I'm definitely not a no, but I probably would have been a yes for 5K up front, but it's the 16K in 2022 I need to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, I need some more definition. So it's not a no.
Yeah.
It's actually leaning towards a yes, but I just need more.
Yeah, and I think
some more information.
the important thing to remember is we're not committing to anything. We're just saying this sounds interesting. Please move forward. And then when we get further along and get more of that information, we can make a more informed decision.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think we're all on the same page here.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that gives us a really good good feeling for where you are, and we'll definitely keep you all informed as we move forward and generate more detailed materials for the project.
Right.
Can I just ask, while you're still here, Nan Latimer, can you go off mute? Will you present this to the comp plan, or will you have someone present this to the comp plan, this idea? Because I'd be really interested to hear, when the time is right, how the comp plan feels about this, and if they see this really dovetailing in with what they're trying to do, that would actually help push me over the edge. I mean, the edge in a good place, not a bad place.
Yeah, the answer is yes, but not this meeting. We're trying desperately to get through our written chapters, so probably it would be in September.
Okay, that's fair. Okay.
I'm right on with the project. I think it's wonderful, but we should discuss it. But I have to get through the chapters.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Keep in mind, Janine is also a key player in this.
Oh.
Janine Spear.
Yes, thank you, Jim. That's right. She is.
All right.
And you know where I live. Get a hold of Paul, and you can get my number if you have any questions. I'd be glad to answer them.
Okay.
And I think it'd be good if you could provide, Joan, if you have updates or maybe examples of what you've done in other places, to give us I know I asked you about the deliverable, but a picture's worth 1,000 words. So if there was like a pamphlet that you developed, or something that happened at another township that you can show us, this is an example of what it's going to look like, and you want to share that with us, I think that would be helpful too.
Yes, I will do that. I will send you a link to the Brandywine Battlefield Heritage Interpretation Plan. And then it's not yet, but you can see the draft materials and how the document is evolving. I think that would be really helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
I would recommend putting chairs in front of your.
Chairs.
It's not in the budget. Sorry.
Thank you. Good night.
All right. Good evening. Yep. Have a good night. All right, Dave, I think you can pick it up next.
Oops, sorry. I'm on mute. Next, we're going to wrap up our Meadow zoning discussion. We had a discussion last month about this, and there was some significant confusion over our zoning and how our zoning is enforced, and the difference between a park and open space and a residential property. I think from my point of view, where we ended up was there is a difference, that the zoning that was used to discuss high grass and meadows and mowing does not apply to an open space because it's substantially different than a residential property. So that's where we landed, and I think, and I'll let everyone else speak, and if they have an opinion, but I think the point here was really just to circle back and close that loop with the residents about, where we ended up. We did have a conversation with our solicitor, township solicitor, and we had a conversation with our new zoning officer, and I think there was agreement across the board on their side that this was an appropriate use of the land. So that's where we ended up. I don't really have any other editorialization or comments on the topic. So I'll just open it up to the rest of the board to discuss if they have anything else to add.
I would just like to, this seems to pop up every month, and we just need to put it to bed for good. Like this, a meadow is a meadow, a lawn is a lawn. The park is a park. It's not a residential dwelling. Our zoning for not mowing your grass applies to a residential home. Our solicitor has agreed. Our planning commission has agreed. I just want to know, does anyone still have any doubt or not understand it so that we put this to bed for good? That's the discussion. That's why I wanted it on the agenda. We need to put it to bed for good. So anybody who has a question, speak.
Well, Mary, I would just say going forward, people get their facts before they make statements, because it's wasted a lot of our time and money.
Yeah, yeah.
And the ordinance is pretty clear when you actually read it. So
Yeah.
I'm glad it is done.
Yeah.
Mary, I got a couple of comments. It's just not about the ability to do it, just what the meadow may look like. I have 7 acres of meadow, and we cut it 3 times a year for profit. And I could tell you that what the meadow looks like over the course of a year is widely different. Most of the time, it doesn't look particularly pleasing, but that's just the nature of a meadow. So if I get a chance, I'll send you some pictures of what it looks like through the year. And some of it's not too good. So it'll just look like a weed patch. But it has value, it has cash value if you bale it.
Well, it has environmental value also, extreme environmental value. And I do, you definitely are in my wheelhouse when you're talking lawns and meadows and plants. That's my wheelhouse. I'm not an engineer, never said I was, but you're in my wheelhouse when you talk about plants. And
just give you one other statistic. You're putting in a half an acre of meadow in Franklin Township, which is 8,700 acres, and probably half of it's open. So the percentage of meadow or opens that you're creating in terms
oh my God, John, you're
significant.
Singing to the choir here. Why we're talking about this 3 meetings is we're talking about 3/4 of an acre, which we agreed to revisit in a year. And do we like it? Don't we like it? If we don't like it, we're going to put it back and mow it. But here we are 3 meetings later, still talking about this, which is why I want to put it to bed. Like, does everybody understand what our ordinance is about cutting grass in a residential property versus a meadow in the park? And if there's any questions, please put them out there now, and we'll revisit this issue in a year, and we won't talk about it ever again. That's kind of why I wanted it on the agenda. Okay, this is just crazy pants, but speak. I mean, I understand it, and I'm fine with it, and I'll revisit it in a year. Anyone else have an issue with it? Doesn't sound like it. Okay, good. All right, so now we'll move on to the next item. The Green Energy Alternative Ordinance update. Oh,
hold
who
on
wants to
there,
speak?
Mary.
Okay.
Crossan Park activities discussion.
Oh,
Chair-
I skipped one. Sorry.
That's okay. Chair McVeigh will start the discussion on the planned activities for Crossan Park. No motion required.
Okay. We've been talking about doing activities in our park, probably when the park is normally closed. Here's the items we've been discussing. Having a food truck night, hopefully with a little band. Another one, which we don't think would cost us any money. Maybe a craft day. We definitely don't think that will cost us money. We may be able to charge like whatever per table. We've also talked about a Halloween trunk and treat. Maybe local business, maybe even local residents would want to come open their trunk. I understand sometimes they decorate it, they get dressed in costumes, and it's a very safe environment for the kids to come and get their candy. The one item we wanted to do, which we thought would cost money, was movie night, because you have to hire the company. You also have to pay for the movie, to rent the movie. And Jeff Eastburn, God love you, did all the research, and we figured it would cost around $2,000, give or take a couple hundred. So I want to make a statement about Jeff, and I hope I don't embarrass you, Jeff, but it needs to be said. I want to acknowledge you for seeking and obtaining a $2,000 grant from PICO for movie night in the park. Jeff researched a company that hosts the movie, where we rent the movie and all costs involved. Jeff also reached out to the Pennsylvania State Police and scheduled a meeting, which we're going to do the end of this month, to discuss any safety issues or security issues they may have with us using the park when it's normally closed. It became obvious that this was going to cost about $2,000, which means I would have had to present to the board, will you approve $2,000? Jeff on his own reached out to PICO, and because of his connections with PICO, he immediately got offered, how about $2,000? Will that do it? It was all about just relationships that he had built. Just in the process of filling out the paperwork to get this grant, and then we're hoping we could do the movie night in September when the schools go back, and they will advertise the movie night, and then we get participation. But I just wanted to acknowledge you, Jeff. I think you went above and beyond on this, and I truly appreciate it. But what I also want to present to the board is I want to know your feelings about doing these activities in the park. Like, are you good with it? Do you want to do it? I think our residents would love it. I think we need to start small. And if it's successful, great. If it isn't, well, it isn't. But I need the board's input on this going forward. So I'm open to the board's comments.
So Mary, this is Donna. I think it's just like exactly what you said. I think we should try it. Go slow and try some activities and see how the township responds to it. I think we've all been locked in our houses for a year and a half, and I think people would probably, hopefully, would respond to getting out and being with fellow residents. The question I do have to you, Mary, is, and maybe Jeff can answer because of his research, how much of a cleanup issue is there? Is this, because that may be an expense too that we'll have to incur it. But could these kind of things, something that will cause a large cleanup expense, or we're not concerned about that?
Well, I apologize, Mary. I have that within my budget. I discussed it with John Hocking, who does all of our cleanup. So I tried to budget for the worst case scenario.
Okay, good.
And that would be 6 hours of his time. So I've got that allotted within my $2,000 budget from PICO.
Okay. And hopefully you won't. I mean, you'd be surprised. Sometimes you get a situation where residents are just, everybody's just so responsible, but you just never know. So that's good. Okay. So I don't have any other comments. I support this, Mary, to give it a try.
Wonderful.
I think this is obviously we've got so far, all of these projects are either very low or no cost to the township. So that's really great. And, the other thing that is important is the more people you get involved in these sorts of things, the more volunteers you generate to help out with the park, because people start saying, people who come to these movie nights might be the first time they've been to Crossan Park, right? It's one of these, and so the more people that get involved, it really helps us generate, volunteers, free labor, so we don't have to go out, and if we need to have a park cleanup day or help to make some trail maintenance, that pool of people who are interested just grows. So I think it's great for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
I'd really like to see this as a success. So I want to try and work with the charter school too, to see if we can get some advertisement out of their digital bulletin board out front on 896 when the time's appropriate, as well as our website and Facebook.
Yeah, and I'm fully aware it will be slow to start, and it's going to be word of mouth, but I'm hoping it grows, and I think it'll be just a wonderful community event that people can attend. So that's my goal going forward. Start slow and low and hope it grows.
For all of the reasons that people have noted, including getting people familiar with our park and using it more, because it's such a wonderful park, and also getting people interested perhaps in local government. I think it's terrific, and I'm all for it.
Good. John, you want to make some comments?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think we had an event that was pretty interesting. We had for about 4 or 5 years, we had a skateboard group that came in there in September and ran an event. And these were, I call them professional skateboarders. I never saw anybody do some of the things they did. So very entertaining. And the way we managed to clean up with them, if we get a group like that again, is they posted a $250 bond, and if they cleaned the place up, we gave them their money back, and they just left it clean every time they came in. So they behaved perfectly for us. So that's another possibility, is finding some sponsor, some organization that can put on some demonstration of something people are interested in. That worked really well. I think the promoter moved to California and it kind of dropped, but I haven't heard anything about it.
All right, then, it sounds like everyone is in agreement to go forward with these activities. We'll see how they work. And I think the first night we're going to go for is a movie night, since Pico's going to give us the money to do it. And we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it works, and we'll keep in touch with each other and make adjustments as we go along. But I've asked Greg Sachs, I don't know if you're still in the meeting, Greg. We had a young girl who just graduated from Westchester University who was willing to jump in and coordinate all this, but other issues came up in her life. So I've asked Greg Sachs if someone on the pro committee would have an interest in being the coordinator. And he's working on that. So hopefully that'll be the liaison between us and everything that happens there. So we'll go forward with this and keep everyone informed. I'm really happy that everyone's on board with this. I think the community is going to love it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, Jeff. All right. I guess no more questions on that. Then we'll keep moving. Joan, I think you're going to talk about the next item, the Green Energy Alternative Ordinance update. There's no motion required. Can you update us on that, Joan?
Yes, I had hoped to have some information for your books, but I just received Pete Eisenbrown's draft review of the ordinance. And after I go over his draft with him, either this week or the beginning of next week, then I will send that out to the board so that you have plenty of time to review everything before we come to the meeting in August. So that will probably be the timeline for the board to review this again before we move on with it.
Okay, so it's moved to August.
Yes.
Okay, and information in between now and the August meeting.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions on that? We'll wait for Joan's update. Okay. So now we'll move on to the Gypsy Hill Road discussion. We've done a lot of work on this. I don't know who wants to, maybe Jeff or Joan, do you want to lead the discussion of all the things we have done? I know we've contacted the state police. We've gone to we've watched a video where LTAP has been out to view our road and given a report. Unfortunately, it was last minute, but that's all we could do. We're really working on doing something on Gypsy Hill Road. Joan or Jeff, do you want to talk about?
I'll start, Mary, and then Jeff can jump in. This has been a concern of the residents there for a while, and we did put up a radar sign at the beginning of Gypsy Hill off of 896, and that's been there for a few years. And we added chevrons on that bad curve in front of the apartments to try and slow people down and to prevent some accidents. So we have been working on this for a while, but it's still an ongoing concern for the residents. So we viewed a LTAP presentation on traffic calming, and we asked Mark Hood from LTAP to come out and look at the road to give us his opinion as to what he thought should be done. And that's the memo that everybody received this morning, because he sent it out around midnight last night. So you have that report in your hands. And we also have information from our radar sign. So we moved our trailer to the other end of Gypsy Hill Road, the 841 side. So we have two bands of information, in two different directions, which helped Mark Hood with his review of the situation there. And if you look at his report, he made some recommendations at the end of it, which we can talk about when we get to that point. But Jeff, is there something that you want to jump in and add to, or?
Oh, you're doing a good job.
Okay.
Joan, can we talk about those, not the bumps, what do you call them? The
speed humps?
Yes, talk about them.
Okay, well, that's what the residents are requesting, speed humps be added to Gypsy Hill Road. And we did find out in our research that there's a ranking system that they use to determine if something has to be done to a road. And again, this is a policy that I think the board would want to look at, that we follow this procedure. And at this point, Mark Hood has recommended an area that, should the board decide that speed humps are necessary to tame some traffic on this road, that there would be an area where 3 of them could be positioned if that turned out to be the best way to deal with this. So, and the speed hump is something that, not to confuse it with a speed bump. Speed humps are allowed on roads. Speed bumps are only allowed on private property, driveways, parking lots, things of that nature. So this is more or less a table with a ramp on each side that will slow the traffic down. And they have to be positioned close enough so that the traveling public does not have enough time to accelerate between each speed hump. So that's, again, takes some planning, and Mark has offered to help us with that, should that be the way to go.
So Joan, when will we vote on whether that is the way to go?
So Nancy, I would hope we could talk about that. I don't know if we need a motion or, I would like to make that decision tonight. I thought Joan brought a good option. I don't know if everybody saw it, but we could get a portable, I don't know if they're called portable, but
temporary
portable speed humps, and try it. So we've been talking about Gypsy Hill for years. We have the data now that shows that on average, people are going 10 miles an hour more than the speed limit.
Right.
We know the poor homeowners are, they signed a petition. They're all saying, please help us. I don't know what would be the downside to trying the speed humps. Now, I agree, 1 wouldn't cut it. I like the concept of 3 placed strategically, and to see, and we would know, right? We would be able to collect the data through the signs, through the electronic sign, whether it actually works. And if it does work, we can think about making that permanent. And if it doesn't work, then we'll try something else. Just one more comment. If you go through Mr. Hood's report, many of the things he suggested in the beginning, we've already done. We talked about proper signage. We talked about reaching out to the neighborhood. We talked about putting in the electronic speed sign. So we've checked, and it doesn't seem to make a difference, or not enough difference to give the neighbors some confidence that this is in a better situation. So I can just speak for myself. I would be prepared tonight to vote for the temporary speed humps, to try that out. And I know there's also something about doing something on the side of the road. I think we'd have to check.
Right.
But
well,
I don't
Donna,
know why.
I agree. And I think it would be nice to vote tonight. I also think that we set a precedent with Old Schoolhouse. And although we didn't have criteria, this is a busier road, a faster road, and a more dangerous road. So in
Right.
my conscience, I couldn't not approve speed bumps. I think we have to approve speed bumps. I think going forward, we better make sure our criteria is clear and we follow it after this. I'm sure this road would meet the criteria, but I think it would be unconscionable for me not to put speed bumps in.
Well, Nancy, wait a minute. Speed bump and this speed hump. Different, like speed bumps are on Schoolhouse. They're a problem, and Ron Reagan said they could be a water issue problem. So we don't want to go there at all.
No, sorry. The
Right.
temporary,
And it would slow down emergency vehicles. Now these speed humps, we could put them in temporarily, but you're looking at about $4,000 per speed hump. So I don't know. I think I'm not ready to vote tonight to do it, but I want between now and the August meeting, and in August we vote to do it. I kind of think it is going to be a way to go, but I really want to engage Ron Reagan and say, okay, where exactly should we put them and how many should we put out there? And then we spend our money. And are they permanently on that road? Maybe, or maybe we move them to another road. I don't know. I just can't vote tonight to put it on there tonight, but I think it might be the way to go.
There's a couple of questions in there, Mary. The first one is, do we all agree that we need to put these speed humps in?
Right.
I don't know if we all agree. I agree we should try it, and we've had some road experts look at it and say, here's what we suggest to do. So I would be okay with saying, let's do this. We agree to do this. It's going to take a while anyway, because we have to fix the road first,
right,
before we put the bumps in. So, it's not like we are going to agree to do something. It's likely going to be these temporary speed bumps, because this seems to be the most logical path forward, because it gives us an opportunity to say, does this work or doesn't it? If it doesn't work, we can rapidly fix the problem, take them out, put something else in. And so I think, just for expediency's sake, we can begin this process tonight, so we can give our staff some marching orders, and then they can come back to us and say, okay, we did some research. Here's the Ron Reagan report. Here's what it costs to give us the speed humps or whatever other traffic mitigating things. So I think what we're really agreeing to tonight is, and again, no motion is required really, is to simply say, yeah, we're going to do something here. It's probably going to be speed bumps, and they're going to go and we're going to have, when's Gypsy Hill slated to be finished?
Sometime in October, I think.
Okay, so I mean, it's not like, so we've got months. So I think the point here is, we don't really have to make a motion to buy the speed humps tonight. We are going to do this, and I want to assure the residents on Gypsy Hill Road, we hear you, and we have been working on this, and we're going to do something.
Right.
And the timeline is the timeline, because we have to resurface the road before we put any traffic mitigation.
Yeah, and paint the lines, and I think the option of not just the yellow line down the middle, but those white lines on the edges, I think were a really good idea to make a driver feel like the lane is narrower, and then hopefully the speed humps, and we get Ron involved, it's going to be a process, and I think we'll get it done. I'm not going to vote on anything tonight other than we're working on this, and tell our staff, go ahead, investigate speed humps, engage Ron. How many speed humps do we need, and where do we need them, and that kind of thing. That's what I want to do tonight. I don't know how everybody else feels.
Mary, I agree with you. I think we probably ought to at least we haven't got Ron's input on this thing.
Right.
Yet. A fair amount of complex engineering information just recently. So I've read the reports a few times, but I'd like to take a little more time to look at it, and I'd certainly like to hear Ron's assessment of it. I'll make a couple observations about Gypsy Hill Road, and what we did over there is, we're unable to put in a row of these things, 2 or 3 in a row. We only put in 4 of them at places that we could because of slopes and curves. But the objective there was not to control speed. That was secondary function. The primary function was to generate enough of a slowdown over the full travel of the road that it would be more advantageous for the driver to use the main road, which is Chesterville Road and Wickerton.
Right.
And we did Jeff did this work, a fair amount of study about what the difference in travel time would be using the shortcut of Schoolhouse Road and taking the longer way around on Chesterville Wickerton Road. And we found that the average difference was only 22 seconds. So we thought that the 4 speed bumps would generate enough of an inconvenience that people would stay off it. Unfortunately, it did not do that. They have really not done the job we expected. The traffic is still fairly strong over there. People learned how to fly over those bumps and not slow down very much. So unfortunately, that one didn't work. But one bit of data that we collected there was the difference in travel time. And we probably ought to gather that information for Gypsy Hill Road, at least to just know what the difference in travel time with each route is. In the same manner that Jeff did it for Old Schoolhouse Road.
Right.
I'm not sure I have any other comments, but I think we did get some comments from a neighboring Director of Public Works, Shane Kinsey. Jeff knows him, I know him pretty well. And you could read his assessment of it, but he does make one point. He says, we have a development a decade ago that fought to install speed humps, and then they actually paid for them. And now there's a push for those residents to have them removed. He didn't name it, but I know it's Inniscrome. So that's another factor that, the residents may want something, and then when they get it, they may find that it's not to their liking. So just a point of information. I think we need a little bit more time to evaluate all this data. And I think, Mary, you got it right. I agree with you. Probably ought to get Ron involved, have some special meetings or something so we can hear his input about it. He's very, very skilled at this, and I think he would really help us coalesce a wide range of data that we have in our hands right now.
Right. Right. And bottom line, I would like the residents to know we're aware of the problem and we're working on the problem, and we want the best solution. We just don't want to jump in there and do something that might work, might not work. It's a process, and we are totally involved in it. So
I think one other thing we should make sure that all the documents that we have should become available to all the residents so that they can view the same information that we're using. I think
I agree, John. And I know Joan sent to our one resident, Tracy Lee, who's been very active in trying to solve this problem. I had another email from the Crew family. They're very concerned. And I know Joan forwarded all this information to them, but that's a great idea. Forward it to everybody over there.
It should be on a website, because whatever decision you make, then the transparency of the information we're using to make a decision is clear to everybody. So they don't say that we use something else or we use some information that they didn't see. So I think it's important to get that stuff out there. Joan had already checked the information we got from LTAP.
And it's very recent, as you know, John. I mean, he was working till midnight last night trying to get us the report for our meeting tonight. So it's real recent, and we're working on it. And we'll get it on the website and give it out to the residents, and we'll get a solution.
I don't know whether you recall, but Mark Hood was the guy. Remember we attended the webinar?
Yes.
Mark Hood was the one that presented that webinar, and he was the guy that came out.
Yeah.
On-site evaluation with Jeff and I.
Yeah.
So Mary, I know that we would normally wait till the end of the meeting for public comments, but I was wondering, are any of the residents here? Maybe they want to comment or give us something to think about as we.
I'm fine if they talk now. There's not a lot left on our meeting agenda, so if they want to comment, I mean, if you're there.
Are there any residents that would want to make a comment regarding the Gypsy Hill?
Hey, this is Bill Edwards.
Okay.
I can hear you.
We can hear you, Bill. Yes.
Oh, I'm just saying, I live at the corner of Hess Mill Road and 841. So
Okay.
I have a little bit of a vested interest in this. I have actually changed my travel routes to where I don't go down Gypsy Hill Road anymore. But I was surprised to read the information and see the amount of traffic there. And I want to just comment, I support what we're doing there. I'm not sure I agree with John that a speed hump won't deter people from going down there, and multiple humps I think would, but I do think it's important to understand the travel time. That's an interesting concept. I used to go up Schoolhouse Road. I probably went too fast, but I don't go up Schoolhouse Road anymore because of the speed humps.
Right.
I just want to say that I am interested with my neighbors on Guernsey Road to do the same kind of data collection. I would say that right now on Hess Mill Road, there is a trend of diverting traffic off of 841 onto Hess Mill Road and then up Guernsey Road to end up going through West Grove and on to Route 1. I've actually done some studying here to understand this. And I would say we have traffic counts of more than 1,000 a day doing this.
Yeah, Bill, I think the thing that
I'm just giving you a little bit of a preview that I'm going to continue to work with John and the neighbors. The neighbors are very concerned here up Guernsey Road about the same thing.
Bill, the only comment I can give you there is that the GPS-based navigators are calling that route out. And I've encountered drivers when we had the road barricaded a few years ago and we're doing some paving. They came down Guernsey or up Guernsey and just said they had to go that way, didn't know any other way because that's the navigator told them to go that way. It's unfortunate that Guernsey is the straightest road from down where you are to West Grove or vice versa, where 841 Chesterville Road really winds all over the place. It's a much better and safer road, but drivers perceive it as longer and the GPSs direct them that way. And I think the same thing happens on Gypsy Hill Road.
Yeah, so maybe we can do something with the GPS people. I mean, I don't think it's right to divert traffic off of a state highway to go through a rural route to get to a destination which heads going down Route 1 east.
And I think,
and we run into 53-foot, I can tell you, 53-foot tractor trailers come down this road. Yeah. And there are places on Gypsy Hill, on Guernsey Road, that if you encountered that, you would not be both vehicles would not be able to pass each other.
Wow.
Yeah, there's and I think there is some methods you can use. You can either reach out to these organizations, the GPS mapping organizations directly, but there's some methods you can use to kind of disencourage this kind of traffic pattern. Because you're absolutely right, telling these tractor trailers going down South Guernsey Road versus State Road, large highway, is really not appropriate. And, just from my point of view, maybe it's just because I'm getting older and drive slower, but the last 7 years, I've seen a marked increase in speed of people driving around these roads. 896 and Appleton Road, people fly around that corner. I mean, it's a blind corner and people don't even slow down. And it's, it's a serious issue. It's a serious issue, and so.
It's a major issue. I mean, when I moved out here, I had no trouble pulling out of my driveway onto Guernsey Road. And now I have two driveways, and the lower driveway is really unsafe to pull out on Guernsey Road because of the blind turn coming from my right side. So I stopped using that driveway because of the change in traffic over years.
And we've all done that, John. I used to come home and come off 841 and go up Gypsy Hill and come out onto 896. I will not do that today. It's too dangerous. You just cannot turn south onto 896. We go out to the stop sign and we turn left there. And it's, everyone's dealing with that. But traffic calming is a major issue on every road for every township. So we're doing the right thing. We're working on it. We'll hopefully get to a solution where it calms it down and the residents feel safer, and we'll, I don't know, take it a road at a time. I don't know what else we can do.
I've had this conversation with the state police weekly.
I know, but there's just not enough of them, William. They're really, unfortunately, they can't be everywhere we'd like them to be.
No, they can't.
No, so we have to jump in there and do the best we can. And when it gets desperate, they will come out and help us, but we have to do the calming that we can. So,
but they would acknowledge there's a record of calls by residents being made to complain about speeding on Hess Mill Road.
I know.
And going through the stop sign there at the bottom where Hess Mill, intersects with Guernsey.
We're not disagreeing with you. We're not disagreeing. It's a problem, and we are trying to work on it. So, anyone else have a comment on this Gypsy Hill Road? Or as I said, it's in process, and we're going to try to get a solution. Will it work? Hopefully.
Mary, can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
It's Paul Overton.
Yeah, Paul.
So I don't live on Gypsy Hill Road, but you mentioned the state police. Have they run radar out there? Because we've done that when I was a supervisor. They would run radar for 2 or 3 straight weeks, and it really helped. It lasted maybe 3 to 6 months for coming.
Well, I can tell you, Paul, we are on the 29th. We are meeting with the state police in our park. The main topic is events we want to have in the park after the park would be closed. But this will certainly be on the agenda that we'll talk to them about it. Yeah, we'll ask them.
Hotchkiss did the same thing, and I drove through every day for 15 years. And when they ran that radar, everybody slowed down for months afterward. So,
well, go down 896 towards Newark, where the speed limit drops. Everybody hits the brake. I agree.
My other comment is, as a supervisor, we tried to avoid speed humps because of emergency vehicles. I don't want grandma to die because you caused an extra 2 minutes of travel time, because Gypsy Hill is a through road. That is a shortcut for emergency vehicles and other.
Well, let me say this, Paul. If you look at the literature, when LTAC put a webinar on that we all, John and I and the staff all looked at, the extra time that an emergency vehicle encounters, it's really like 10 seconds. It's very low, which encouraged me.
I would just suggest that you ask the gentleman who spoke tonight, the fire chief and the Medic 94. Just get their opinion on that road. And
good idea.
And what it does to their $500,000 new fire truck they just bought.
Okay, very good idea.
And then the last one is snow plows tear them up pretty good, but it can be designed to withstand the snow plow, just like the ones on Schoolhouse, but it doesn't help.
Yeah, there's a lot of loose pieces here that we have to discuss and try and make the best decision.
I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying what to think about.
Good ideas. Thank you, Paul.
Just to kind of put a little bit of information about Old Schoolhouse Road, we did have state police up there with radar units sitting at the top of the hill there by Spencer's barn. They were writing tickets for 50 and 55 miles an hour on that road. So
wow,
it slows people down for a while, but as soon as they're gone, it's back. So
I know it's difficult. It's a problem. It's a problem everywhere. All right. Any more comments on Gypsy Hill? I mean, it's an ongoing issue that we're working on. No more comments. I think we'll try and keep moving on here. John, you want to take us to the next item?
The next issue is a COA. It's a certificate of appropriateness issued or controlled by the HARB. I make a motion for the board to approve or disapprove the COA application for 100 Walker Road. We have a second.
I second that, John, for the approval.
So I guess I'm sorry, Don, I over talking you. So the HARB has asked us to approve it. So perhaps we should say I make a motion for the board to approve the COA application for 100 Walker Road, just to make it in alignment.
That's the way it reads. It said I make a motion for the board to approve or disapprove the COA application for 100 Walker Road. It's our approval.
You need to choose one or the other.
Yeah, you have to choose. Oh, I see. All right.
Yeah.
That's the way. So let's.
Sorry, you approve, right?
Let me just reread it with one option. I make a motion to the board to approve the COA application for 100 Walker Road.
Right, and I'll second that, John.
All right, okay. Discussion. I guess the only comment I've got about it is it's for a 6-foot high fence. And I thought we didn't regulate fences that were under 6 feet. So I'm just wondering why this thing's even an issue. So somebody ought to explain that.
Because it's in the HARB.
How does we don't regulate fences?
Actually, that's not entirely true, John.
Okay,
we
well,
have
the explanation.
We have zoning language in our ordinance that says that a 6-foot fence is permissible if it is not entirely opaque. So this fence is entirely opaque. In other words, there is, I forget, I couldn't tell you off the top of the head what the percentage of non-opacity, but it calls for a certain amount of openness in the fence if it's 6 foot, if it's in the front yard, and if it's 4 foot or less, it's permitted to be in a solid fence.
Well, I looked at the fence recently. I mean, it's got 0 opacity, so the boards are butted together as I saw them. I didn't stop and look at it, but I drove by it slow enough that you couldn't see through the fence. So it's got 0 opacity.
Right, and so beyond the issue of whether it's a complicated issue because the ordinance got oversimplified in the advice to residents that was available as a PDF on the township website. And in addition, that PDF did not indicate that you might be dealing with a different situation if you were in the historic district. And so the owners, having read this file, believed that they were proceeding correctly in building the fence. In fact, there are issues when you build such a large structure and disrupt the streetscape in a historic district. So while the HARB would have preferred an alternative fence, say one that was not so high, there were reasons basically to protect the health of the dog that they own, which had a tendency to jump the existing fence, that led them to build this. And so the HARB arranged for a solution that would cause a reasonable reduction in the height of the fence when it was no longer needed to protect the life of their dog. And the owners also agreed to reduce the height of the fence to one that's appropriate for the streetscape of a historic village prior to essentially transferring the property, whether they did that through a real estate agent or through a private sale. And so that, more than anything else, is the subject of the COA that you have before you. And the only question I really have, since the owners quite clearly indicated their intention to do this and the agreeableness of this agreement to them when we were talking, is whether having that on a videotaped meeting would be sufficient for the township, or if the solicitor feels that we simply need a notarized agreement to record this. Otherwise, the situation is that we have recommended that the supervisors grant a certificate of appropriateness for the fence.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Mark's disposition is, but I think from my point of view, there's a couple of issues. One, we have a problem on our website where we have some zoning guidance that is inaccurate for our township residents. And so if our township residents, if they do what we say we can do on the website, it's not their fault. So we can't, make them tear the fence down. And so I agree with the HARB's position. But the second piece is, there's a couple of issues with the fence, taking that corner now, that four-way stop, where the fence is, where their sight line around that corner now has been greatly reduced. And so one question I have is, when these kinds of structures go up, is there any consideration, Appleton Road is a state road, to talk to PennDOT about appropriateness when you put up something like that and disrupt sight lines along a state road? Is there any ordinances that question isn't really for Paul, obviously. I don't mean to be asking you this question, but it's just sort of is this something that residents should consider when putting up something like this? The second piece,
Dave, in that particular case, they replaced the fence in kind in terms of its corner location and line. They only increased the length and reduced the opacity. So I'm not sure they changed the sight line on that particular case. I don't know.
They increased the height of the fence from.
Yeah, but the sight line, if you look at when you're pulling up to an intersection, I know this from this last Gypsy Hill Road issue, when you're measuring a sight line for cross traffic, you measure it at 3.5 feet above grade. In fact, when Jeff did it, he had to stoop down to get his eye at 3.5 feet. So not sure that a fence that high, it starts at 3 feet above ground and then goes up another 6 feet. It's going to make
I
difference.
see. Okay.
I'm not.
No, okay. And so then the second piece is, the HARB's recommendation was contingent on this agreement with the residents that they would lower the height of the fence and bring it back in line. And so I think from my perspective, I'd like to have something in writing from the resident that we understand that this is the agreement. This is why we're moving forward. So the question is on the table is for Mark, is this discussion, is this discussion sufficient, or should we pursue this written agreement?
Well, I mean, you could make a motion subject to their agreement in writing, or in writing that they're going to take the action they said they're going to take. I mean, someone's just going to need to, understand when that action needs to be taken. That's all at the township. I mean.
Okay.
So I would point out, David and Mark, that I did raise this issue with the property owners that the township may want some form of written agreement, and they were agreeable when I spoke to them about it, of doing that. So I don't think that this should be a major impediment to moving forward.
Great. Then I'm good.
Yeah. As long as they're agreeable, that's good, because the fence is already up.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So should we vote?
All right. And then, now the motion, the way it was written, was to approve the COA. So a yay will approve it. So all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
John, do we need this written agreement before we say yeah? I mean, I'm fine with saying yay, but are we?
The fence is already up.
I know.
No,
we need the written agreement from?
Mary, I think we want this is contingent on it's just to put a document in the file, a written document that says that they have agreed to replace it once the issue with the dog is, I don't want the dog to die, but once they no longer need it for the dog. So I just would like that paper in document it, and they seem to be in agreement with it. So let's let's do it.
Let's approve it and get there. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
So I don't know if we need to restate it, but that's my vote was contingent on a piece of paper.
Okay.
John, are you okay with that?
Well, the motion didn't make any reference to the piece of paper. The motion.
You can start over again. You could do another motion that's contingent on a piece of paper.
Why don't you restate the motion the way you'd like to hear it then?
So, okay, I would say I make a motion for the board to approve the COA application for 100 Walker Road, contingent on the township receiving a document that states that the residents will replace the fence with a 4-foot fence once the issue with the dog has been addressed or no longer needed for the dog.
Perfect. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Motion
Motion
carries 5-0. Next item.
Perfect. Perfect.
So the next one's me, and it's a hybrid meeting. I don't. The only thing I have to say is that I'm hoping that by August that we can get back, that the board members can have the meeting actually in the township building itself. I know Joan and Jeff are working on this, so I was going to turn this over to Joan and have her update us on what's taking place, and if she believes August would be a time frame when we actually could be back in the township, and in addition to still have the meeting broadcast through YouTube. So Joan, can I hand it to you?
Sure. As you said, Jeff and I have been working with different firms trying to come up with a solution so we can have a hybrid meeting, because we have very limited space at the township building, and trying to provide a safe distance for all the supervisors and the officials that need to be there, and still have some room for residents. It's very hard to do that. We figure we might be able to have 2 residents in person if we do it that way. So we did research to look into doing the virtual part of the meeting through Zoom so that residents could still participate and that supervisors could be in person in the building. The first company we had come out, they did a demonstration for us, and Jeff and I thought it went pretty well, except for the fact that the camera you could not tell who was sitting at the supervisor's table, because the camera was not strong enough to zoom in close enough so that you could tell what supervisor was sitting there and who was talking. So they agreed to come back with a different setup, which they did 2 weeks ago, and that was pretty much a disaster. So some more research was done, and Jeff talked to a gentleman, Steve, from Delaware Audio Visual, yes. And he came out to meet with both of us, and he has a new system that he thinks he might be able to have the end of next week for us to try. And it would be individual microphones at each of the supervisor seats, and like one for Mark and myself and Jeff, and then like for Paul when he sits at the other side of the table. And with an intelligent camera that when you push your mic to speak, the camera would turn and direct itself towards you so that the residents at home would be able to see who was speaking. They would have a close-up of you speaking, and they would be able to tell who it is. So I'm really anxious to have him bring that out and try that. And Jeff talked to him today. So Jeff, what did he tell you that maybe next week?
He is hoping to have a demonstration unit by the end of next week. One of the systems that we're talking about would actually be 2 cameras. Right. And the thought process right now is They would be up higher, possibly on our center support structures. Again, like Joan said, intelligent. They would go based on the microphones being used. So the demonstration unit would include one camera. He knows we want it mocked up high, and he'll have a couple of different microphones for us to try. So this company seems a bit more with it. So I have hopes for their presentation.
And I believe I did tell you in an email that this company is doing the sound work for the Del Dot and also for Christiana Hospital. So they do deal with some big customers, and they agreed to come out and take care of little old us. So hopefully we can get something going for the next meeting.
Joan and Jeff, it sounds great. I just need to warn you that I will not be able to attend in-person meetings for probably another 5 or 6 months.
Nancy, I thought of that, and that's one reason. I mean, you don't need to be there. You'll be able to participate the same way you do now, and residents will be able to participate from home the same way that they do now. But we could have whatever supervisors are available in person.
Thank you, Joan.
And Joan, what I've been reading from PSAS since Governor Wolf lifted the restrictions, the emergency restrictions, that we as a township are required to provide a physical meeting space for residents to attend a meeting. It didn't say we can be on Zoom, we can be in physical attendance, but we need a room where residents can show up. You and I have talked about this. Most of our residents seem to prefer to participate via Zoom. So hopefully that will continue. And the one or two that want to show up, hopefully we have room for them. And if not, we say, go back home and get on Zoom. You know, but we do have to provide a physical space for them. So yeah, it's going to be difficult until we can get through all this. We have a very small room. So we'll work it out, right? That's all we can do.
Right. Yeah, Mayor, I don't think we should lose the great progress we've made having these Zoom meetings. And
Exactly.
So I think
Donna,
it's-
so many more people participate. It's absolutely wonderful. And if you look at who's participating tonight, look 2 weeks from now who went on YouTube and participated in the meeting. It's very encouraging. It's very encouraging.
Right. So I think this is all good stuff. And if we get the get the supervisors back in the building, and if some people prefer to show up, then we figure that out. I think it's all about participation. So I just want to don't lose sight. We are making massive progress, and I know we'll continue to do that.
We will. We'll just keep working on it. All right. Any more comments on this hybrid meeting? I think it's a work in progress. Everybody agrees on that?
Yeah, I think I hope we get somebody that's more technically competent than the last group.
John, I was so thankful I wasn't epileptic because I thought I would have had a seizure. I was watching it was maddening.
Yeah, those guys were not competent, so hopefully the group is better. So, all right.
Hey, you got to go through a few processes, right, to get to where you want to be. All right, if everyone is done with that topic, Dave, I think you're.
Yep. So the next up is we're going to talk about the American Relief Funds now. This is a conversation will be led by our manager, Joan McFaw. She'll provide a summary of the anticipated expenditures from the American Relief Fund. There's no motion required.
Each of you have in your book a spreadsheet, a statement that I created based on what we discussed. For expenditures for this first disbursement of funds. And we did receive the $237,442. It is in our checking account, a separate checking account that I opened up just for these funds. And this spreadsheet shows some of the expenditures that we talked about. And one of them is to replace the lost liquid fuel income. We could reimbursed our liquid fuel account for the difference between this year's amount and the amount we received in 2019. So that's the $20,000, almost $21,000. So that money can be moved over to the liquid fuel account to be used for our road program. And then we also can use these funds for our park improvements, for the open space activities for our residents. So that's the tennis court and the seal coating and the pickleball court. That's another expenditure. They all total $39,927. And then we can also use the funds for stormwater work. And based on what we had agreed to do with our road program, that totals $130,125. Now, I did put an amount in here for the audio-visual equipment, an estimate, and I put $10,000, but I think that's going to be low. I think it's going to be closer to $15,000. So right now, with what I've shown here, we would have a balance left over of between $31,000 and $36,000 out of this half of our funds. Does anyone have any questions or suggestions?
And Joan, if we don't spend this $30,000, this year, we can carry it over till next year till we get the second half of this money.
Yes,
correct?
Mayor. Yes,
okay.
We can.
Okay, we can carry it over.
Joan, I heard tonight for the first time that our emergency service providers, West Grove Fire Company and Medic 94, were expecting to get some of that money because they felt that their portion is going to be supplied through the townships. So it's the first I heard that that issue brought up. So I think we need to look into that and find out whether that's appropriate or not.
Well, Joan and I talked about this, and this is something, of course, the board has to decide, but we discussed maybe a one-time contribution, to help them buy these. What are they? They want to buy defibrillators. The library has had extended costs because of the COVID. That maybe as Franklin Township, we want to say, okay, here's $5,000 this year and this year only. But that's something I think when they get their budgets done, and that they're going to come asking for money, and I'm fine with that. And we will say yes or we will say no.
Well, just related to their budgets, they now bring their budgets to us.
Right.
Late August at our request many years ago, so that we got to see their budgets before we had to prepare our budget. But what I'd heard tonight, I think it was from Neil, that West Grove was looking to get some of this American Relief Fund money from the townships. So,
no, I think they all are, John. I think you're absolutely correct there, that they're all thinking,
so I think
now it's time to hit the townships up. They got the money.
So, one way to do that is to look at their annual expense in our budget related to our total budget and proportion, possibly the amount of the American Relief Funds to that proportion.
Right.
That might be a fair way to do that. So, but I think that needs to be looked into. We don't want to take them out of the equation if that's what's expected.
No.
So I think we need to find out first off, if that's the way it's intended. That's the first I heard it was tonight.
So I think, John, do you think we're looking at, this is an item on the agenda for September after we see their budgets?
I think right now you're going to have to figure out how to allocate these funds. So I wouldn't wait till September. I think I would immediately start looking into whether we have an obligation to do that. And then how to fulfill that obligation if it's true.
Okay. All right, we'll see. But I think we've already spent all but 30,000 round figures of what we got this year. So, well, we'll see.
Well, look, we need to get our heads around this. It doesn't sound like we're ready to talk about it.
I think that's right.
So we can move on. I think.
There is another comment, an overall comment about these funds I'd like to make, is that the fact that the federal government is granting money almost directly to the townships, and they're not giving you money because they like you or they think you need it. They're trying to establish a dependency. And if you look at some of their long-term plans and some of the platforms of the candidates, you'll see that one of the things they're looking at doing, and I'll read this. There's a lot of news out there. You can find much of it yourself. This particular article says, as part of the $2.3 trillion infrastructure plan, the Biden administration is pushing local governments to allow apartment buildings in neighborhoods that are restricted to single-family homes. Administration claims it's a way to ease the national affordable housing shortage and combat racial injustice in the housing market. Well, I think if you think about how that would be implemented in our township, it would not be good for Franklin Township.
All right. Well, we can see how that goes forward.
I've collected a lot of information on it. I'll send it out to the board. You can read it and research it yourself.
There you go.
We ought to know about it and understand it.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I think the key, and I think we're doing it right, you don't want to put any of this money to something that you need to continually pay for. So I think we're doing it right. We're using it for costs that are a one-time cost. We're not becoming dependent on the income stream. So, John, I think your comments are good. That's something that we need to watch out for, is that we don't start thinking this money is going to be available every year, or there's going to be a stream of money coming out every year.
No, and Donna, that's recommended. PSAS is on every week saying, do not hire a new police officer because after 2 years, you have to keep paying them and the money's not there. So I think we're going about this the right way, and it's a learning process and we'll get it done.
So we have categories that, and as a document, I didn't read the whole thing, but it's hundreds of pages, I believe, that talk about how to allocate these funds. So whatever we put it in, we need to be sure that they'll approve it, because if they don't, they'll come back a couple of years later and want the money back.
Yep.
So that's something we need to be careful of. So I understand the categories, but in reality, the best thing we could do with the money would be to reduce our debt. That'd give us the quickest upgrade in our finances, but they won't let you do that.
No.
Well, John, look at it this way. We get audited in 2024 and it's not your headache. Okay. So no more questions on this. We'll just.
It's everybody's headache. We're all.
I know. It's all
taxes. So.
I agree. But let's see where this goes. And can we move on to the next item, Nancy?
Yes. 3327 Appleton Road update. No motion required, but Joan, perhaps, or Mark, perhaps you can fill us in.
Mark, please.
Thank you, Nancy. The only thing to update the board on is concerning the appeal of the demolition permit. That is a process that proceeds before the Court of Common Pleas. We filed the record, which was the evidence that was presented during that hearing at the board with the court. And once that record is filed, then the briefing of the parties begins. There's 31 days. The property owner has to file its brief. And then once that takes place, the township files a brief. And then argument is heard before the court. So we were looking for that to proceed into the fall. So that's the only update I have.
Thank you, Mark.
The only other question I have is related to the Mandus. We're expecting that he would withdraw that Mandus action based on signing the lot line plans. Is that still in place, or he has?
Still, as far as I know, yeah, as of today, it's still before the court, and we're working on that, John, to ultimately have that withdrawn, whether it's by motion or otherwise. So that's where that stands.
Okay.
I'll probably have another update next month.
Mark, do you know if they have recorded the plans that they wanted the board to sign? The lot line?
As of last week, no, they have not.
Okay.
And Mark, are they still contacting you, or is it just gone quiet?
Other than concerning briefing schedule for the demolition permit appeal, there hasn't been really any communication.
No new deals or any of that, so it's just quiet, okay.
Nothing that we haven't discussed already.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, we'll move on to Lexington Pointe update. No motion required. Joan, is this you to update us?
Really, they submitted a permit application to LTO and they are working on that. They still have not gotten approval of the amendment to their permit application that was submitted. So that's something that they're waiting on too. All of these things have to fall into place before they can start doing anything else. But Mark, we still don't have the signed agreement, that the one that they agreed to, verbally agreed to everything, but we don't have that, and we don't have the new figures for the security deposit or the security escrow. Is that correct?
No, Joan, and that's correct. And I spoke to their counsel today on another matter, and we discussed Lexington Pointe. He indicated to me that they heard from the DEP that that permit amendment would be issued within the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
Has been held up for quite some time. We're not sure why, probably just because there's a short staff at the DEP and probably a backup of permits. That being said, he also understands that we need those numbers and those agreements to be signed. So he believes that once his client is ready to proceed, that they'll be able to get those in order fairly quickly and start moving along with their development.
Yeah, the troublesome thing to me is that we developed that agreement, 6 months ago? We hammered that out, and the guy still hasn't signed it. But that's a bit troublesome here based on previous behavior. So I'm anxious to see whether he'll actually sign it or begin negotiations again.
What's probably going to happen, John, once they get the permit, they'll be knocking on Mark's door saying, where is it? How come it's taking so long for whatever? It's just, it's craziness.
Donna, that's been the story for the last 10 years. So I don't see any
and then
different.
they'll blame you, Mark. They'll say Mark sat on it for a year, right?
Oh.
I mean, what are you going to do?
I just on a frustration.
No, we're ready. We're ready to
negotiate again. I think they're going to want to build. They're going to want to get started, and once they get their DEP permit, they're going to want to move. I do have a question though. They had some issues with the driveway. Have they done what they needed to do, Joan? Have they made the repairs that they need to make on the facilities that's there?
Donna, I believe they had the foreman from Lexington Pointe said he would send somebody out. The last email I saw, which was the end of last week, said that he would send somebody out and have it done. That's something I can check with URS's ACOM's person. It goes out there every other day to see what if it's met their requirements.
Yeah, let's keep them on the stuff to make sure that the facility's being taken care of.
All right, I think we've wrapped Lexington Pointe up. Now we've come to, is there any public comment on any issue at all? Anyone out there that wants to make a public comment?
Yeah, Mary, this is Paul. I would like to make a public comment.
Okay.
It's about the comprehensive plan. And I want to be careful here. I don't want to open a can of worms, but I do need to point out a few things. Could I actually share my screen?
Sure.
That'd be all right. I have to wait till it's enabled.
All right.
So we were talking about the trails plan on the comprehensive plan. So just, we're going to have that meeting next week, and I just want to put some things in perspective. Can you guys see my screen yet?
I can't. Now I can.
So this is the comprehensive plan on the township website, and I just hit the download button right there. And here, this is the current comprehensive plan from 2009 is what I mean, right? And here on page 193 is a current trail map. So this trail map is the starting point for the trail map we have currently, the one we're working on now, because the comprehensive plan committee
joined the meeting.
Said, you need to update this. This is out of date now. Because some of these trails have been actually built. Others are a bad idea because they're along a road, like John was astutely pointing out, that we would never put a trail along Guernsey Road. That's a bad idea. And so we said, yeah, we need to upgrade this. But remember, this map was made with several public meetings. I think of 3 or 4 public meetings and a lot of input on where do you want the trails to go? Where are your destinations? How can we get here to there? But, if I zoom in a little, these trails go through private property. See this? This is private property. This is a road. This is a road. This is private property. Private property. So private property. So we haven't caused anybody, private property right here. We haven't caused anybody to run out and trespass or anything. And this is the degree of the map we intend to make, is at this level, a 1-page, 8.5 by 11 map. And to put it in perspective a little bit, the old comprehensive plan had like a dozen maps, which we don't intend to do. I'm just scrolling down here. I hope my screen keeps up. But like here, they zoom in. They actually go closer. And so this shows real detail right across people's property. And no one ran out and started trespassing on, oh, holy crap, that's my farm. That's my property. And I haven't had anybody try to run a trail across my property. So I don't think anyone's going to turn to page 206 and start going out trying to trespass. So I just wanted to keep in mind, let me get to one more, that the trail maps that we've had in here for whatever, 12 or 15 years have not caused a problem, and they're much more detailed, much closer zoom. This is all private property. This is Churchill Road. This is private property, and private property, all this.
So Paul, I'm curious why we're bringing this up again, because we came up with a proposal from Nan how to deal with this.
But the proposal was, don't you dare show a trail map on Tuesday night. And I'm thinking, how can we do our work? So I sat here for the last 2 hours thinking, how are we going to do our work? When the trail maps that are currently in the comprehensive plan are more detailed and closer zoom than anything we're proposing.
So we weren't on the board when those maps were done, and that was I can't address that, but we did talk about this, that we are concerned about people and their private property without them being asked, having their boundaries and having a trail look like it's going through their property. Without their okay. So we agreed a way forward.
Well,
I don't know
we
why
didn't all
we're
agree, but
Wait. I'm in public comment. I want to finish my comment.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't understand why you're bringing this up.
I get to bring up whatever I want in the public comment. So I think the mistake is we're thinking of this as like some sort of geographic map that we go out and plot our route that we're going to hike tonight. But this is not. This is a planning document. So for example, this right here, this is our zoning map. This is a planning document. Nobody's going to go over here and start building a light industrial facility just because it says light industrial. You can do whatever you want. So on our future trail map, we don't know if these are going to happen or not, but it's our obligation to plan. If we have an undeveloped parcel and we want to trail across it like this one I'm pointing to, that's the same one that I showed in the other one, but in much less detail. That's my property here. If we want to trail across it, we need to show that for future generations of the planning commission. So when this property comes up for development, after I'm dead or whatever, we can see, hey, this is where a trail should go. Or if the pro committee in the next 5 or 10 years can acquire a trail or get an agreement for a trail, that's great. But most of these will be on paper and never be built. But then at the top, just because of your concern, and by the way, you can see this says draft in the left corner. On the top, you can see here, it says, proposed trails mark a general vicinity and direction of a potential future trail. No exact location has been determined. No agreements with property owners have been made. Please do not trespass. So these dotted lines, we don't know where they're going to go, but we needed to give a general idea. So when this parcel comes up before the Planning Commission, we can request of the developer, please provide a trail east to west. So our thoughts we need to discuss was, we would not publish this like as a map on the front page of the website. It's buried on page 196 of the comprehensive plan. That's where it belongs. So that when the Planning Commission can access it and they need it, they have an official document that they can reference and say, yes, Mr. Developer, we need an east-west trail, not a north-south trail. Thank you very much. That's what's it about.
So are you done your public comments?
That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay, so that's fine. You made your comments, but we made an agreement with NAND that this will be brought up at the beginning of the meeting before any plans are shown. Kathy Goins, there's been a conversation with her. She's come up with a map that's a little bit more generalized than this. And so I think we just stick with what we've agreed to. And you have your opinion, you've made it. But there's people that their initial reaction when they saw that map was, did you check with the homeowners? And the answer was no. And there was concern. So I guess I'll just leave it there.
We're gonna do what you said on Tuesday. You know, I'm not questioning that. That's fine. I'm just pointing out, this is not about the current homeowner. This is for future planning purposes. This is not a guide to hiking in the township. This is a planning tool.
And I respect your comments and what you're saying, but I think you also need to understand that there are homeowners and that would have a different reaction, and we need to be aware of that.
There's only maybe 4 trails, maybe I'm exaggerating, 6 trails that go through a private parcel. Can you maybe say which one it is so we can go knock on that person's door?
I think any trail that, well, first of all, I don't think we need to continue the conversation because we've already agreed a way forward. But my recommendation to you would be, if there's a trail on a map that you want to develop further, you should make the owner aware of it, and make sure that they are okay with what you're doing, and explain to them, just like you explained to me, that it's just a planning tool, that it's not something we're going to build tomorrow, and we just want you to be aware that this is what we're doing. I think it's common courtesy to do that. And if they have a strong objection, then I think you need to hear what they have to say. And if they say, yeah, it's fine, then it's fine.
And if they object?
Then I think you have to respect them. And I think you have to blank that out.
So for future generations,
their property, no.
For future generations, we can't mark their property with a potential trail, because does that car, you know, I don't get that.
I respect the property owner. I would just, if they come back to you and say, no, I'm against it, then I think you have to respect. That's what they say.
Okay.
Paul, just a final comment, but by displaying these maps in public, you fundamentally violated and compromised the security of public property, of private property, and also the agreements we had with Kathy Going and Nan Latimer.
Okay, well, did I do it when I displayed our current maps, this one? Because this is a public document on your township website. Because these trails are pretty much the same, John. There's very little difference between the old trails.
The idea was to not display a trail on a piece of private property where the owner didn't agree to it. And you just did that tonight in a public meeting. So you fundamentally violated exactly what we're trying to remedy here.
John, this is your
For
document.
everybody's security in the township here.
This is your document on your township website. So I'm in trouble for showing your document on your township website.
I don't think you fundamentally understand the security and privacy that people expect. So I can understand why you step all over it because you've done it many, many times before.
I don't think this is getting us anywhere. So Paul,
Yeah,
you,
I'm done.
I don't want to curate.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for the time.
I think you made your point, Paul.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, it's getting late. We don't want to get nasty. It's done. Is there any more public comment? And if not, if I hear nothing, we are going to adjourn this meeting at 9:53 p.m. Thank you, everyone, so very much.
Thanks, Mary.